Hello? Is this working all right? Good evening, everyone. I hereby call the student government side of this joint city council meeting to order. If you want.
And good evening. I call the special meeting of the Ames City Council to order.
And so on the student government side, we're going to start with our normal roll call. When I read your name, please say here or present. Martinez. Gopa. Azan. Rolls. Chenoweth. Everhart. Campstra.
Here.
Hackbarth. Keeler. Atikos. Swank. Janes. Reichert. Mahoney. Trotter. Moisango. Cecil. Wellman. Momini. Pursley. And Schneider. Given that we're not conducting any business this evening, we do not require a quorum, but we would have it.
Okay, we are kind of flying a little bit under the weather here. We have one of our council members, Gloria Betcher, notified me she is sick, so she regrets she cannot come. We have Bronwyn Beatty Hanson. She is one of our at-large council members. Anita Rollins had committed to come also, and the other three, Rachel had to go on business out of town, and there are two other ones that said they could not make it. But the point is, please don't take the lack of their absence as being, we don't take this important and value the interaction. So Brown and I can just handle all this, right, Brown? We got it? All right, so, thank you for having us.
And so with that, before we get into our welcoming comments for the evening, we'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Speaker Campstra. And so with that, we'll move into welcoming comments from Mayor Hale, followed by President Holliday.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to visit with student government. And for those of you who have been on student government for a while, this is probably going to be a little bit of a repeat, but we do highly value this opportunity to engage in conversation here from your body in terms of what is going on, concerns, questions. We have a good agenda before us tonight to kind of cover some of the high points, and I have some other things that I jotted down that we may talk about towards the end. But as you are probably aware, at 30,000 students enrolled, you're virtually half of the City of Ames population, and we represent you, and we want to hear from you, and we have a very capable ex officio who has jumped right in, and certainly we welcome any kind of emails, contacts, phone calls. All of our phone numbers are on the websites or emails, and or you can contact our ex officio, and he'd be happy to communicate that as well too. So looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We are very excited to have you all here tonight, whether you're a part of Senate or a guest here this evening. As Mayor Halo said, we have a great agenda. Our ex officio, Jeff, has been putting a lot of hard work into it to make sure that we have a lot of important topics on the agenda. I do just want to note that this is a very exciting opportunity for us as students to have the opportunity to chat with members of City Council. This weekend, we attended the Big 12 conference down at TCU, and we were chatting about our upcoming joint city council meeting. And not very many other student governments have the opportunity to connect with their cities that they're located in as well as we do. So please be sure to take this opportunity with great pride and strength and have good conversation tonight. Be sure to address any issues or conflicts that you see and have some great conversation. So thank you again for everyone joining us tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing all that we have to say.
Well, with that, thank you to Mayor Hala and President Holliday. I do just want to mention, for those of you who are new to joint city council meetings, that this is a little bit different than our average Senate meeting. We're not going to be voting on any items of business. We want it to be a little bit more conversational. And so we really encourage you to speak up, to ask questions, to engage here. And so we do want it to be a little bit more fluid. I'm still going to be calling on people as if it were a traditional meeting, so we're following that procedure. But I do also want to mention, all of you should have the agenda for tonight if you want to be looking ahead and thinking about any questions you'd like to ask. We're not going to be 100% strict about it, but we really would like to try and keep to these time slots allocated on the agenda, just so that we get to all the important topics we want to talk about tonight. And so, you know, we want to be conversational, but we don't want to be repetitive. And so, with that, thank you, everyone, and we'll move into open forum, as is required of student government meetings. So if anyone is here tonight for open forum, I would ask that you approach the podium at this time. Seeing none, we'll move into adopting the agenda for the Senate portion of this meeting. Is there a motion to do so? So moved. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any objection to adopting tonight's agenda? Seeing none, it shall be adopted. And with that, we'll move into the student engagement topic. The floor is open for any discussion. Yes, we're in the student engagement section, but specifically we're starting with City of Ames welcome weekend involvement, yes. So starting.
So I've, some of you may be already aware, but I've asked our Chief of Police, Jeff Huff, to be here and to just offer some opening comments and maybe, oh geez. I'm gonna get it. You ever had a problem? I tell you what, when you're getting older, your brain just starts going really bad. You're Chief of Police. You'll come to me sooner or later. Sorry. Mike Newton. There's a great partnership between the City of Ames and the ISU law enforcement. So we've done a lot of conversation, and I think that, I don't know, where would you like, can he come up here? Can the two of them?
Yes, there's a podium.
Oh, okay. All right.
On our right here.
Yeah. My apologies, Chief. What's that? Oh, well, yeah, it's kind of embarrassing.
I saw a big difference in that. Our calls for service were pretty close to the same number. The way we calculate it basically is Friday at about 5 p.m. through early morning hours Sunday. That's the time frame we use to try and compare from one year to the next. So the Ames Police Department had total calls for service of 271 in that time period. And we were just about 10 more calls for service in 2022. So not a big change, pretty similar. We did write a few more citations and a few more arrests than we had the year before. I think the biggest change that we specifically had was in possession of alcohol under the legal age citations. We had quite a few more of those this year than we did last year. And part of that could be the weather. You know, in 2022 it rained, if you remember, about every 45 minutes for the first part of the day. I think one troubling kind of fad that we've begun to notice is the Borg, or the gallon of alcohol and whatever else is in there. We saw a lot more of that this year. Now, we've always seen this. This was nothing new, I think, to us, but we saw a lot more of it this year. And of course, binge drinking is always going to be a concern of ours. As far as parking goes, we had the same regulations we had as last year, where we posted signs in the university impacted area advising people that illegally parked cars in those areas could be towed. And just like last year, we only towed about 30 vehicles. And so we had really good compliance on our parking regulations for the entire weekend. And so just in general, we thought things went pretty well. We feel like there was maybe fewer people that came into town this year than maybe last year. And one of the messages that I gave out, and I had some criticism, I would say, is, well, we weren't very welcoming. Well, we're not trying to welcome people to come in from out of town. Cyclone Welcome Weekend is for Cyclones. It's for our students. It's for them to get acclimated to both university life and the city of Ames. And so we don't want a bunch of people coming in from out of town just to party, because that's not what this is about. So it is true, we are intentionally trying to keep people from coming in from out of town for this event. We want just our Cyclones here for that. So if you have a question about that, that would be my answer.
Just give you a little bit on the university side. So, you know, with the Cyclone Welcome Weekend events on campus, we tend not to see any issues. There were no issues at the sanctioned events. Well, people coming to the sanctioned events aren't the ones who technically or generally go out and do the drinking and the partying. The good news for us on that is it keeps a group of people from going to the parties just to see what's going on and see what it's about. So we do think that the campus events do pull people away from just gawking and going out into the neighborhoods. And then, you know, if you look at our stats that we put out right after the event, a lot of what we do is we help the city of Ames because we're great partners. We try to, both of our law enforcement agencies back each other up. We work events together. We try to help each other out where we can because both of us together are a full force multiplier with it. If you look at our stats, all of our arrests were really related to the parties and other things they're having, but we also saw a decrease in the number of people that we were having contact with, especially the people from out of town. So the year before, over 60, high 60% of the people that we arrested or had contacts with had no ties to Iowa State, had no ties to the city of Ames. And so they were definitely coming, and a lot of them were students at other universities that heard this is the place to come. So we spent a lot of time with Dean of Students and other folks of trying to encourage these other schools that Ames isn't the place to come. Ames isn't the place for fun. We want to welcome our Cyclones to town. And so this year, 45% of our arrests, citations were out of town folks. So we definitely, from that trend, are seeing a decrease in visitors coming to party and be in the city. Overall, our arrests were at arrests and citations about 65, which is getting lower. And so it's going down, it's going in the right direction. And the stat that I really appreciated for us was we didn't take anybody to the hospital. And so, you know, that's a huge win that we're seeing a different trend with the events of that weekend.
Chiefs, can you both just talk a little bit about how the partnership works? And I just want to make a comment too. That the Cyclone Welcome Weekend is an initiative from Iowa State University, and we're proud to partner with the university, but they take the entire lead on it in terms of organizing it. It was certainly, Dr. Winterstein and I talked about this, oh gosh, it was almost 2 years ago in terms of after 2021, when we had, I remember sitting, it was in the Campanile room in a joint session, and a chilling report from both Chief Newton and Chief Huff that we were quickly on our way to potentially another VISHA in terms of the amount of activity and the drinking and what's going on. And so out of that became the Cyclone Welcome Weekend. We tried to get away from the previous moniker, which I will not say what it is, but the point is you all know where it comes from essentially. So in 2022 was the first time that the university put it on. They branded it, they did so much, and we're happy to partner with them. A number of us were at the Lead Center on Friday night welcoming students this past year. But it's really a partnership between the university and the city, with the university taking the lead, but also maybe the two chiefs can talk about kind of how you partner together. And yes, City Council has adopted some ordinances at the request of the university to try and help keep people safe. And the other thing too is that we do have neighbors who are not students who do have some concerns at times in terms of partying, property damage, noise, and potentially safety, and or being able to drive down streets, which kind of precipitated some of the ordinance changes. So maybe talk a little bit just about how you work together, and as they both have said, we couldn't be prouder to be partnering together, and there's just a really a great camaraderie and a desire to work to protect not only students but also our community.
Yeah, I can start. I tell this to people a lot that aren't part of Iowa State about our 2 police departments, about the community as a whole. Because before being police chief here, I was working for a different police department at another university town. And I just tell people this: we share a records management system. We can back each other up in our dispatch centers. We partnered and built an entire public safety radio network together, also with Story County. I don't want to forget them, because all 3 of the entities are strong partners in making sure that the whole of Story County is protected, not just Ames or Iowa State. It's to be able to work together and leverage those partnerships. So we have really built a strong relationship, and we're so tied together that we need each other, and we have to have that relationship, because if we didn't, we wouldn't have the systems that we have today, which would be problematic for public safety. And that's the short piece I tend to tell people about.
Well said. And I think I would only add, that's not the way it is everywhere. So you should really feel lucky as a student to know that you've got a number of different law enforcement agencies that work as closely together as we do, that all have the same goal in mind, and that's, making sure everybody is safe. And so it's nice to work in that environment where we know we've got officers from ISU that'll back us up, we'll back them up, we do training together. So we buy things together to save all of us money, and so it's a great partnership, and it's why we can successfully do things like Cyclone Welcome Weekend, and why they can get a football weekend put together and all those other things. So you should feel kind of lucky that we've got that going on here in Ames.
And as an example of the partnerships, recently, actually, in Story County, we went to a joint, all have the same radio system. Yep. That allows seamless communication with one another, and actually can reach a lot farther into some of the catacombs of some of the buildings on campus as well too. And also the fire department has it, the sheriff has it, and surrounding communities have that as well too. So the whole goal is really to provide the highest level of public safety as we can for our residents, and you are residents of our community, and it's just I'm proud to be associated with them, and it's a great partnership. So with that, I would turn it over to any questions that the senators might have.
So the floor is open, starting with Vice Speaker Kamstra.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for both coming tonight. My first question is, we saw a decrease in stats from Chief Newton. I was wondering if you had the statistics of out-of-towners that went down specifically?
So that's a little harder for us to determine, because we don't always know who's an ISU student and who's not. Anecdotally, I would say a large proportion in the past has been out-of-town people that have no connection to Ames, no connection to Iowa State. Probably a little bit fewer this year, which is part of our goal.
And then my second question kind of relates to that. So with a decrease in out-of-towners, that would mean an increase in students potentially, not saying it is, but potential increase in students. Are those students reported to student services? Because I know there was discussion of working with Iowa City to report those students to their student services. So if you could just talk about that a little bit.
So on both ends, we report everything to Iowa State, so that Iowa State Dean of Students can look through those lists and determine if they're students, and if any action needs to be taken, and I'd let you finish up.
Yeah, I mean, and every single one of our cases goes to the Dean of Students on a daily basis. And if there's a student involvement, they'll initiate student code of conduct proceedings, depending on the level of severity of the event. We have both departments have a really tight relationship with our student affairs team, with Dr. Younger, with Dean Evans, to make sure that we're serving the students in every step of the way.
Cool, awesome, thank you. I yield.
Senator Janes. You can take my calling, or you can move yourself down if you wish.
So I guess building off that previous line of questioning, so we saw that statistic, but I remember just recently in the Daily Mail that it said that we've seen an increase of vandalisms in September. So, obviously I get it, that's a very big important thing, but what about long-term solutions so that we don't just see it in the weekends, but also, during the semester?
Yeah, and we're continuously I actually just had this long conversation on this topic. Any of the student government members who are on my student advisory board can talk about that. But we had a long conversation. We actually took up most of our time last night, or Monday night, talking about the vandalism increase. We're seeing that a lot in our residence halls, which then also trickles down into the community, right? I have seen some stuff from some community members about trees being vandalized and other pieces. And there's a really tight correlation between alcohol consumption and those events. Weird, right? And so we're partnering with, many of you know Brian Vanderheiden from our Student Wellness Office, and we're partnering to look at some long-term solutions on alcohol, drugs, mental health. We have a large initiative going on that hopefully will, I know we have some student involvement too from student government, to look at, what are some programmings that we can do. We also talked about in residence halls about making that truly feel like a home. Would you really treat your home this way? Would you do these things? And so how do we build that respect for community? And that's a huge part of what we're going to try to get to, just like on the, we've talked before about the number of sexual assaults and sexual violence cases, and really we're pushing a consent campaign and making sure that people really understand what that is. We need to do the same thing with these vandalism cases of helping people understand that all you're doing is costing your community, right? And it makes it feel like a very unwelcoming place when you see these things happening. So I didn't completely answer your question, but there's more to come on programming pieces.
Yeah, and then I guess my second question is to both of you. You guys brought up that you have seen a decrease in numbers, but one of the things you attributed is less people are coming into Ames. But do you think that's the main reason the numbers have gone down, or when you looked at it last year, and did you add new programs, and that's what you attribute it to?
So that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think part of it is a reduction in the numbers. Part of it is the steps that Iowa State has taken in all of the programming that they're doing that's drawing some people away from the activities we'd rather not see into activities that are better. So I think it's all of those things, and we're looking to see that continue. So our goal is really to get this down to the point where it really is truly just the Iowa State students, and it's Cyclone Welcome Weekend only. That's very manageable. People are more respectful of, I think, everything when you have some tie here. And so that's really our goal, is to continue the trend this way instead of the other way. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Senator Everhart.
Yeah, so I just had a question about like the ordinances, if somebody could, elaborate more on what exactly they are, just so that way the people that are watching can get a feel for how that affects students.
Yeah, so the city council can authorize an increase in fines for nuisance parties at our request. And so we may request, this year it was the same as last year, from 5 p.m. Friday through 4 a.m. Sunday of Cyclone Welcome Weekend, the fine for a nuisance party was increased to, I think it was $750 for a first offense, and then it kind of goes up from there. So that's the first one, and that's only in effect for that time period. And the city council has specifically authorized that. And then the second one is the immediate towing for illegally parked vehicles, which is the same way. We have to make a request. City council has to approve the time, date, all that, and the area for that one.
Awesome, that answered my question. I yield.
Ex officio clerk.
All right. Sorry. I just had a quick, less of a question, more of a suggestion. I kind of had an idea going back to the sanctioned events that occurred during the Welcome Week. And it was a sort of meet and greet kind of idea with the city council and with the police chief and everything like that. If that was a possible event that we could put on during Welcome Week. Because I know when I was a freshman, I had no idea who our mayor was. I had no idea who our police chief was. I could not put a face to a name whatsoever. So just kind of to take more kids away from that big drinking crowd and bring them more in, would that be a potential idea that we could look into?
Well, the mayor's up there. I don't want to speak for him, but yeah, I think there's certainly those kind of possibilities.
Well, if he's going to volunteer me, I'll volunteer him then too, so, no. I think that was,
Voluntold.
we're certainly open to that, and I think that maybe it could be twinned with the, at the Lead Rec Center when you had the Friday night meal. That was part of the reason why we were there, was to try and greet people. Now, I have to say, I was quite offended because people want to go and see and have pictures taken with Dr. Winterstein versus me, but I guess that's the way it goes. But no, so I think that maybe we could try and do a little better job of explaining, who we are. But it was pretty amazing the number of people that did come in the doors, and but I'm not so naive to realize they're there for food, to have fun, and to get pictures with the president of the university. But yeah, we're certainly open to that. I think we want to respect people's time too, and I don't know, open for feedback, but if we just had a separate event just for a meet and greet with city council, if you think it'd be successful, I think that we're open to trying it. We would want to fly that by administration, because this is really their event. And but we're here to be a team player, and I know Dr. Winterstein made it very clear, and so did their team, and I think that Chief Newton would agree. We knew this was going to take a number of years to get this rolling, and I think every year they're doing a debrief to find out what went well, what could we change to make it better. So I can certainly pass on that idea, and if they feel it'd be beneficial, we're certainly open to doing that, because yeah, I think, and honestly, just full disclosure, when I was a student here in the early 1970s, I didn't even know the city of Ames existed. I just kind of lived on campus, went to campus town, didn't have a car, and didn't leave. So I think to broaden that perspective, there's so much that's going on in our community that we want you to be involved, and we'll talk about that later on. But I think that maybe that'd be an opportunity, and I'm glad that we met.
And we knew it would take several years to kind of change the culture that built up. I mean, if you look at the previous events that had transpired, that built up over a number of years. I've been at Iowa State almost 7 years now, and it was happening before I got here. It was a shock to me, my first move-in time here. I was like, what is this? What is going on? Like, my previous institution, we had some things that happened very similarly, but we knew it would take some time, and I think that's a great suggestion that we can definitely take back. I have my police officers from ISU Police at that event, and they actually were playing yard games with students and doing other things, and I'm happy to invite Ames in as well, some of their officers, to be a part of that.
There we go. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. I yield my time.
And then finally on this item, we'll go to Senator Trotter.
Hope this works. Okay, thank you. Firstly, thank you for your continual service to our community. And secondly, just going back to the vandalism thing in IRHA, we've been having a continual debate for the last several years over the introduction of cameras into residence halls, specifically the hallways. Do you have an opinion on that? Do you think it's a good motion? My personal holdup is the cost and the sheer number of cameras and infrastructure required.
I do apologize. I would refer that to the open discussion part at the end of the agenda so we can continue on time. So I do apologize that is sustained.
Okay.
So with that, without objection, we'll move into the Safe Word project.
One more?
If there's... Yes, apologies for that. If there's one more, we'll go to Senator Persley.
Kind of going along with the meet and greet idea, is there anything you guys are doing to kind of bridge the relationship between students and the police? I know a lot of incoming freshmen have a big fear of the police. Is there anything you're kind of doing to fix that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, with ISU Police, I have a student advisory board, and I welcome any student who's listening or in the room who wants to join the advisory board. I don't have a cap. I'm happy to take students to be a part of that, and I really rely on them to give us feedback and input. Also have a community outreach team, and a community outreach team does a lot of work and event along with our engagement and inclusion officer, Officer Green, is out, trying to build relationships, meeting with different student groups. And we've, in ISU Police, have made it a goal for all of our team to be out trying to build those relationships. We know students come from many different areas where they don't have positive relationships with law enforcement. And so that's why you'll see us have a booth at Destination Iowa State, be at all these other events. We have a residence hall liaison program that's really ramped up. So our liaisons are out there in the buildings, hopefully they're supposed to be doing programming. And if there's a building that's not, please reach out to me and we'll make sure that we have the team in there doing the programming. But we strive every day, and I know our partners at Ames do too, to build relationships with our entire community, because we can't do this alone. It takes a community effort if we're going to have a safe, secure, welcoming community.
Just briefly, we're involved in Welcome Fest that happens. The other thing that we're heavily involved in is that weekend, when everybody's moving in, we're doing a lot of door-to-door leading up to Cyclone Welcome Weekend, not only to welcome students back, but also advise them of the things that are coming up and some of the rules and all that stuff too. So we do a lot of that. We have other outreach events that we do. They're more in the community, not so much on campus. But we're always open to anything. If there's a student group or anyone that wants to have a program with the police department, we're happy to do that.
Thank you, I yield.
Could I turn that around and ask, what suggestions would you have to diffuse or help allay fears of law enforcement?
That's a hard question. I think that kind of talking with students and allowing them to know their rights, I think that's really important. I think a lot of students come in not knowing their rights, and so they're very scared of the police because they don't know what the police can and can't do. And I think that's really important, but also just being able to speak with police and know that they're people too.
And we have a Know Your Rights programming. We've done it in years past. I think we've partnered with student government in the past on that, and we partnered with the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office, and we'd be open to doing those again, and I'd be happy to invite our partners from Ames Police to be involved with those as well.
And so with that, before we move on to the next topic, I believe one of our cabinet members has their placard up if someone would like to yield time. Senator Janes?
I yield to Director of Affordability Hagan.
So kind of on the flip side of that, so I'm a freshman this year and I'm in a fraternity. So I had to go through the new member symposium, and I think you guys did a really great job. I know you had 2 or 3 officers come in. That kind of helped with the transparency of it, made it seem less like you guys are out to get us rather than like, it just kind of opened it up and made it feel like you let us, like you told us what you're looking for, kind of like what to look at, what to avoid. So that was a really good way to get involved in the community, especially in the fraternity side of things.
I yield.
Finally, Senator Momini.
Hi, thank you guys for coming. I'm just going to add a quick comment in regards to what would make it feel more opening. As a person of color, when I go to events and I see a whole bunch of police officers in uniform with their weapons and everything, that can be really like overstimulating, just kind of intimidating and make me want to stay away from, whatever event it is that's going on. Of course, I understand the safety precautions with, needing your weapons and everything, but I think it would be really helpful if, I don't know, I haven't been to a lot of events, but yeah, if you can be like, in plain clothes and have people interacting like that, I think that events like that, where that happens too, is really great. So, thank you.
Yeah, and we've been trying to do a lot more of that, and I know our partners have as well.
All right, and real quick, just so we can best utilize everyone's time, I would entertain a motion to amend the agenda so that we now consider liquor licenses ahead of the Safeway program.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second on that motion? Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, the amendment shall be made, and we are now on liquor licenses. Floor is open. Mr. starting with ex officio clerk.
Just real quick, maybe Chief, you can just give a really short education on what role we play as city council and responsibilities. And again, we're talking about safety, not basically trying to squash people having a good time. It's really trying to be enforcing laws and what responsibilities the state puts on us. That kind of gets them set the background before we get into that, so we don't realize, people don't think we're trying to poach on them or kibosh places to go and enjoy beverages.
So the city council is a local authority when it comes to issuing liquor licenses. And so every 12 months, a liquor license comes up for renewal, which is an opportunity for us to report to city council basically how they're doing. So if we have lots of establishments that remain on the consent agenda because they haven't had any violations in a 12-month period. Others have some issues, and we report that as well. The police department also has the responsibility for doing compliance checks on the liquor license holders and aims, which is a lot. So it's every bar, restaurant that has a liquor license, retailers, Hy-Vee, Fairway, all those folks. So we go around and try and do those compliance checks, and those are simply done by taking someone who is under the age of 21 with their actual real ID that says they are not 21, go into an establishment, they attempt to make a purchase. Obviously, if the purchase is made, that's a failure. And if the purchase is not made, then they pass the compliance check. We report all those to city council as well, so they know when there's been a compliance check failure during that renewal period. And so that's kind of in a nutshell, kind of how that all works. But the city council is kind of the first step. So if the city council were to deny a liquor license renewal, the licensee has the ability to appeal that decision to the Alcoholic Beverages Division, or ABD. And whenever someone files an appeal, then they continue operating just like normal through that entire appeals process. So you can have someone that was denied a liquor license that can operate for some time while under appeal. I know that may be a question that comes up.
So if that, the floor is open for any discussion, starting with Senator James.
So I just wanted to do a couple clarifications. First, what did you mean by because I know there are locations in Ames that are known to be the place to go for underage drinkers, but I know they've gotten caught. I've seen the things where it's they've been fined and stuff. But at what point would you not consider allowing them to have a liquor license if they have a history and there's cultural expectation that they would do this? Why do we still give them a liquor license if it's become such an issue?
So what we do is we look at that 12-month period of the license. We report any issues to the council. And usually I make a recommendation on whether I think they should renew the license, but it's always up to the city council to decide what they want to do. The appeals process is the appeals process. It takes too long, unfortunately. In some cases, we have settled with the liquor licensed establishment that have decided to make certain changes that we've recommended to them. And then it seems reasonable at that point maybe to give them their license back for a shorter period of time. We have an 8-month license. And so sometimes we'll go with an 8-month license, which gives us a shorter period of time to kind of make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. We've actually had some success with that. We've had some licenses that were denied. Eventually, we approved, or the council approved, an 8-month license. And during that time, they haven't had future violations. So in some cases, that works pretty well.
Got it.
Hopefully, that's what you were asking.
No, absolutely. That
Okay.
was. I guess then moving on to the council, how do you guys kind of handle that idea of making those decisions when they do probably bring revenue into the city? So do you have to do that balance of what could be the worst? Or do you guys always prioritize? I don't. That sounds bad to say always prioritize safety, but how do you do that balance?
Well, I think to start with, we rely heavily on our law enforcement advice. There are times where there's been a violation or two that the chief of police will say they have taken additional steps, they have done new procedures, that there's some confidence that they're gonna keep a close eye on it.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. recently, there's been some pretty egregious infractions that cause council to deny the renewal. And I think as Chief mentioned, though, and I was not aware of it, but the point is that they can continue operating, and they can continue operating for an extended period of time as they're going through and doing all these appeals.
Yeah.
So people might think, well, gee whiz, their hand's not getting slapped. That's their rights.
Yeah.
And so we're bound, I mean, the council falls underneath state law, so is so is the police department. So they can keep on appealing it to a certain point, and then if the appeal is over, if they sustain the appeal, then they just keep on going. But it takes, I think it takes 9 months to a year or even longer, depends upon how fast the state, gets around to it. Because again, we're working underneath the state law that governs this. And also has to do with, the sale of tobacco as well, too. So it's just, maybe Bronwyn and Anita Rollins just walked in here a little while ago. She's a Ward 3 council member. Maybe if Anita or Bronwyn, if you want to go ahead and add something, to the conversation. But we do take it seriously, but, the number of establishments that exist and going around doing these compliance checks, which is required by ABD, it's a challenge. And if you do know of places where you can go and drink and you're underage, please tell Chief of Police what those establishments might be. They probably already know what they are, but the point is we can go ahead and see if we can encourage more evaluation. So, Brown, go ahead.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I was just going to add that we certainly, we don't make decisions like, well, this is a lucrative business, so we'll give them a pass. Like, I think we want to treat everyone fairly. And so the cases that we've seen, like the mayor said, they were pretty egregious in the cases where we denied liquor licenses. Because, we understand mistakes happen, and there are really good fakes out there. So there is a difference between, the severity, I think, of a minor having gotten in with a good fake and the police verification, which is just, the police don't send someone in with a fake. They're using their real ID that shows them to be a minor. And so if someone doesn't even catch that, that's something we look at even more stringently, right? Because that's more in the control of the business. And so these are some of the cases we've seen where it's been, again, more egregious cases where we've decided to deny a license, but certainly not because of even the long-standingness of the business or the economic impact of that business would not be a driving factor for us.
Chief, could you also just comment? There are some also, if there are certain violations where there's an automatic suspension by state law, maybe you could highlight, how many times or when that does happen. And then there is no choice. That business basically gets shut down for a certain period of time.
Yeah, so there's a first violation is a fine by ABD. Second violation is a 30-day suspension and also a fine. Third violation is a 60-day suspension and a fine. And a fourth violation within 3 years is a revocation. And just to kind of expound a little bit, there is kind of a hierarchy of violations. So if we have an establishment that has lots of fights or shootings or something like that, that's way at the top, right? We got to get a hold of that. Underneath that, we've got the compliance check stuff. And then underneath that is kind of the fake ID thing. So we know that fake IDs are tough to sometimes figure out. And so we do weight these things a little bit differently. So we have establishments that maybe we've written, 15 or 20 people for being in the bar underage, but they all have fake IDs and they're reasonable fakes. And so that's a little bit different than failing a compliance check, which means you looked at a real ID that was under 21 and you didn't catch that when you should. And so we try and weight those things a little bit on how bad they are, really.
And I'm sorry, council member, are you still wishing to? Moving over then to Senator Wellman.
Yeah, so my question is, how do you How do bar raids work for verifying bars aren't serving to underage individuals?
How do what work? I'm sorry.
How do bar raids work for verifying bars aren't serving to underage individuals?
You mean the compliance check?
Yeah.
Oh, so we have a person that's under 21, real ID, we send them in and they try and make a purchase.
Well, I mean, like for the bars, like how do you, like if a student uses a fake ID, for example, how do you verify that those bars aren't serving to underage? Like how do we verify that the bars aren't serving to underage students or individuals?
I'm sorry, I'm not following.
I think I know what you're asking. So you mentioned how you might cite a bar for having 15 to 20 minors on premises that had a fake ID. He's wondering how you establish that. I think it's because of your walkthroughs that you do. So officers will walk through and verify IDs of people who are currently sitting in the bar.
Yep, so we regularly get out, walk through the bars, and if we see people that we think suspect might be under 21, then we ask for an ID. And a lot of times, they'll give up that they have a fake ID. Is that what you're asking? Yeah. Okay, I want to make sure I'm answering.
And then my other one is how well does it work? I guess does it work? Obviously, does it work good? Like what's the success rate? I guess is my question.
Success rate of fake IDs or?
I guess of like how often I guess would you say that you there are fake IDs in bars?
Oh, about every time we walk the bars, we find someone that's under 21 that shouldn't be in the bar. And in a lot of those cases, it's a fake ID. I'm sure you're all well aware, you can get online and you can order a couple of fake IDs from somewhere that are reasonable. Some are better than others. And most of them order two. So when your first one gets seized, you have your backup one as well. So we kind of know how the game works too.
Senator Reichert.
Sorry, guys. Well, just to kind of add to what the chief was saying and to answer that question, bartenders are also required to attend fake ID training provided by City of Ames PD. I am a bartender at Blue Owl, and every single time that it comes up that they have a session, like we are required to go to that, and that they provide the information to help spot those fake IDs, what we're supposed to do when we find them. And, you know, as someone who's worked for like the last year and a half in a bar, we have noticed, I personally have noticed a significant decrease in the prevalence of fake IDs.
Did you say decrease or increase?
Sorry, I said decrease in the number of fake IDs that we've seen.
Yeah, we have quarterly bar meetings, and we have training in addition to that. So the quarterly bar meetings are for, you know, well, it's open to anybody, but a lot of managers and owners will come to those, and we kind of go over what's been going on, the trends. We also have ID training, and so does ABD on their website, IPACT. You can take the training online as well. So we try and help train people so they don't, you know, accept the fake IDs. But I will honestly say there are some that are pretty good, and it's sometimes tough to determine whether that's a real ID or not, especially most people, when they order a fake, it's an out-of-state, because that's how you get by with it. Because if you live in Iowa, you don't necessarily know what a Nebraska ID looks like or a Minnesota ID looks like. So I think that's why a lot of the fakes we find are out-of-state fakes.
I think also to your question is that police can't be omnipresent. We can try and do, you know, they're trying to do, you know, spot checks, and that's where the expectation is for each individual bar to have people checking IDs before they come in, and the bartender's supposed to be also, you know, doing that, to be self-policing essentially. And we're just trying to do, we don't have enough staff to go in and be in every individual bar and check it. My question or point to the student government is there has to be peer-to-peer saying this is not right, because we can't legislate our way out of the situation. And so it is a concern. It is an issue that does exist. We're trying to, we have to work within the confines of the law. We have to respect what, and I have to say, there are bars that get cited and have had, licenses close to being revoked, and they have made changes, and they're trying to do more things. So that, I think that's working, to your question of, what the success rate is. But it's only as good as the people who are operating them. And if you have someone, we've had some cases where there's been, chummies, the people that are checking the door while let their favorite, BFFs to come in, and they know they're underage. That's pretty stinking hard to catch that and stop that. We're not going to have a police officer do, checking their work as well too. So it's got to be this partnership, and I think the question was raised, and Brahman did a good job. We're not getting, besides maybe getting some sales tax or something, we're not getting any financial benefit as a city from, that. In fact, we're concerned about mental health, we're concerned about substance abuse. It's actually a detriment, to our community, not an asset to our community. But people choose to, they want to, enjoy adult beverages. We get it, we understand that, but you just got to be, of age. So it is a challenge, and I'm sure that if you ask any law enforcement professional, they would prefer not to have to be doing this, but it is a responsibility we have. So, good questions, and thanks for doing some probing on this.
And I do apologize, for the sake of time, we're going to have to move on to our next topic, and so I'd thank our representatives related to liquor licenses. With that, I would move over to ex officio clerk to briefly go over the Safe Word project.
All right, I'll be relatively brief since we kind of went over time a little bit, but the whole idea of the Safe Word project is to be a safety buffer, a safety net for people who go out to the bars and people who get a little more messed up than they probably should. It's a pretty common practice in a lot of bars, and I noticed that I did a little mini survey in the last week, and out of about the 50 students I asked what an angel shot was, only 22 of them knew what an angel shot was, which was really interesting to me. And so I think just the idea of putting these in bar bathrooms and allowing people to know that that option is available and providing that to patrons could be a big help in terms of safety and security. So, and then the plan for where these would be implemented is local Ames bars, and then also the downtown bars in Ames. So just all around any bar that serves alcohol. So, and that's about it.
Sorry, I did not mean to cut you off.
Oh, you're okay.
So with that, the floor is open for any discussion on the Safe Word project, starting with Senator Mahoney.
Yeah, I will just also kind of echo, when I knew this was a thing, I started asking some of my coworkers. I also work security and as a bartender at one of the local bars on Welch Ave, and none of us really knew what this was. So even if somebody did come up and tell me as a security or as a bartender, angel shot with lemon, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know how to make that. So I do think this is a great idea. I know we at the local bars are always trying to increase their security, make them a safe place that people can actually come and enjoy themselves. So this sounds really good to me, and I think you'd have a lot of buy-in from a lot of the local bars, at least probably Big 4 and Little 3 on Welch Ave.
Senator Everhart.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that at the Big 12 conference this past weekend, there was quite a few other schools that also had this implemented. I think it's a great public safety initiative and great work.
Senator Momini.
I just have a question. If this will be where it will be posted, will it be kind of everywhere in the bars? Will it just be in the restrooms? If it is everywhere, no. I'll just start with that. Sorry.
So ideally, we would have them positioned in restrooms. There's actually two different safe words we're going for, an angel shot and an owl shot, where the angel shot would be in the women's restroom and the owl shot would be in the men's restroom, just as a way to sort of dissuade. There's some creepy people out there, and if they know that this is the definite safe word for everyone, they could, catch wind of it. And just to avoid that from ever being a problem, we decided to just put two different words in each restroom. So if that answers your question.
Yes, awesome. That was the concern that I was having, is that if it's in every restroom and women know that it's in every restroom, they won't feel safe asking for that. But
Absolutely, yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I yield.
Senator Trotter.
Just kind of continuing on that strain of, do we just change the code words every couple of years so that they kind of refresh and so people can't just memorize them?
Frankly, I haven't really thought that far ahead. It's definitely like an idea that we could look into more. I've just kind of been thinking of having them be the same for years to come, just so people know it off the top of their heads, and if they're ever in danger in the bars, that they can just utilize them.
Yeah, just the natural risk of having victims know it off the top of their heads is that having the perpetrators know it off the top of their heads as well. But with that, I'll
That's true.
yield.
That's true.
Moving over to Senator Swank.
Yeah, so if people like are not in a situation where they can like order an owl shot or like an angel shot, there's another like a sign language that you do. It's like you put your thumb over for human trafficking.
Oh, that's
so I don't know
awesome.
if that's something you can add for, I don't know, maybe people who can't, like they're with somebody, you know.
Absolutely. No, I really like that idea. I might try and implement that into some of the posters.
Awesome. And so finally on this topic, we'll move over to Senator Keeler.
I think we can all agree that this is a great idea. So my question, I guess, is in terms of implementation, do you guys have any like strategy to, I guess, get the bars on board with this as quickly as possible? Because I think we can all agree the quicker this is implemented, the more people that can be, I guess, feel safe when they go out.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I plan on personally going to bars and petitioning this. I feel like once the bigger bars start adopting this idea, little bars will follow suit, and hopefully it'll be a big domino effect for all of Ames. But I'm going to personally reach out to the owners of each bar and communicate with every single one of them. So,
All right, thank you. I yield.
And so one final addition onto that from Vice Speaker Kampstra.
So one other idea that I kind of had was more towards the police chiefs and regarding liquor licenses. When we have a bar or a restaurant that is continually breaking it, maybe, and they don't have this in place, saying, hey, just to also promote safety, you guys should also be doing this in your bar, of just like, hey, show to us that you care about the safety of your guests and people that you're serving. So just an idea of also using that as kind of a caveat of, hey, you don't have this in place, this is also a really good idea for the safety of your patrons, so.
And so with that, without objection, we'll move into the next topic for this evening. At the request of the mayor, and again, to best utilize everyone's time, I would entertain an amendment allowing us to immediately consider parking and citations.
So moved.
It's been moved, and I think that's a second. Are there any objections to making this amendment? Seeing none, it shall be made, and we are now on parking and citations. Specifically, the floor is open on parking violation increases. Yes.
So I'm not sure what the specific question is. I've got parking violation increases. Is that just in general, or?
I was just more so curious, is there any plan in the future to either decrease and or increase parking fees, et cetera? Like what's the plan going forward with that, or are we just gonna kind of stay at the same rates? You know?
So it's currently not under discussion as far as increasing any of the parking fines. You know that on game days in certain areas, like football game days, there is an increase in that area around the stadium. Otherwise, there has not been any discussion. I would also say, just to clarify for everyone, we don't make any money on parking. I think a lot of people think that we make a lot of money off our parking tickets. We lose money every year in the parking fund, and we have to take money from the general fund and put it in the parking fund to make it balance. So we really don't make any money on it.
You might just share too, why we raised the parking ticket fee on game days.
Yeah, so we've had over the years lots of complaints from the neighborhoods around the stadium where people are parked on both sides of the street, making it sometimes difficult to get through, blocking driveways, blocking fire hydrants, all those kind of things. There's, for the most part, and I think Chief Newton would probably agree, there's ample parking on game days around the stadium. There's legal, ample parking. So people that are choosing to park illegally, you know, we're trying to combat that, especially for our neighborhoods who certainly it's not fair to them to have all those parking violations, makes it tough for them to get around. And so that was the reason for the increase on game days.
And also, prior to the change, it was cheaper to get a parking ticket than it was to park in the pay lots.
Yeah.
So, gee, why not just go ahead and park closer to the stadium, and I'll just pay the parking fine versus going ahead and paying the entrepreneurs who are charging a lot more. So it was interesting. I was walking around one of the recent games, and I think that most of the parking lots now are about the same price as the as the parking fine. So maybe we have like a little bit of a competition going on. We'll just keep on raising the ante. But anyway, that's kind of what we're trying to do, is trying to keep it. And the other thing is that some of the streets are in campus town, or in the South Campus neighborhood, are pretty narrow. And if you have cars on both sides of the street, or some of these trucks have got huge mirrors, they could block an emergency vehicle getting through. And we have been told on many occasions they will get through, but the people who have cars parked illegally are not going to like the results, because it's going to tear up the side of their car, and they're also going to get fined and also have to pay damages for the. So we're trying to make sure that we can get through, and I think it has worked to some extent. I'm not sure if it's extensive, but anyway.
Yeah, we've kind of plateaued, I think. The number of game day enhanced violations that we write is usually around 200 or so a game, except for the Iowa game, which there's quite a few more there. But otherwise, it's sort of plateaued around that kind of 200 area. And it falls off towards the end of the season. When the weather changes, there's fewer people tailgating and those kind of things.
So with that, the floor is open for discussion on parking violations, starting with Vice Speaker Kamstra.
I was wondering, I lost it and then it came back to me. Iowa State Parking has added some like license plate scanners. I was wondering, like, is it still meter, people going around checking meters and stuff like that? Is there any way that you guys can implement a system like that? Because I feel like, kind of with even like the e-scooter, we're not getting into that yet, but it's kind of a lack of citation almost, because when I walk home, I pass dozens of cars on the Storm Street block, and none of them have parking tickets. So I was wondering if there's any implementation going forward to kind of up the citations on specifically game days of citing. So like if it's the scanners that like Iowa State Parking has, or if it's still people going.
So we don't have, though. We utilize Park Mobile, but we don't utilize license plate readers or anything like that. We just try and put extra staffing out for game days to try and catch the violations that are out there. But yeah, we certainly don't get them all. Game day is busy for a lot of other reasons too, and our parking staff do more than just parking. So they obviously write parking tickets, but they also help the officers. They transport prisoners. They help out scene of accidents, directing traffic, all those. So they have other duties on game day besides just writing parking citations.
Okay, that answers my question. I yield.
Senator Azan.
Yeah, so my question will be thinking about like increasing the meter parkings and like parking spots, because personally I've experienced that like most of the meter parking were like full, like someone is parking there and then I have to park like 15 minutes away from like Lincoln Street and then walk all the way, So maybe like thinking about increasing the parking spots for like people who are like wanna park, but like there's no parking spot, especially for like even Iowa State parking. Lot 29, I'm still waiting to get the spot there. It's a lottery system, I guess, probably. So maybe like increasing the opportunity for the students to actually get the parking and then park legally. So maybe think about along the lines, I guess.
Okay, that's a good suggestion. Parking is a premium, especially I think any university town is probably the same way. But yeah, we can certainly look at what other opportunities there might be for parking.
I might address that one if I could. So I think it's probably unlikely, at least anytime soon. I can't say that for sure, of course, but it seems unlikely that the city of Ames will be adding more parking. In fact, we're trying to go the other way for a number of reasons. So parking takes up valuable land, and in a lot of cases, now I admit on game day or during a busy semester, right near Iowa State, yeah, it's going to be tricky. But we're trying to incentivize people to use other modes of transportation too. So, we'll talk about SciRide here in a minute. Our bus system is great if you are near a route. That's a way we would encourage people to travel. We're always trying to strengthen our pedestrian and bicycle networks too. But I personally, and not the rest of council, I don't know that everyone agrees with me on this as much as I do, but I think that reducing parking is an important piece in reducing our reliance on individual automobile traffic, and I feel like that is very important as we look to climate action.
Yeah, so just want to follow up. So the whole point, I understand where you're coming from, but it's kind of like there's a correlation between violation and limiting spots. So that was my whole idea, because for me, I live off campus, and I'm still waiting to get the lot 29 on campus so that I can park. So the whole point of increase in violation may be correlated with like limited number of spots available during the rush hour probably or whatever. So that's the whole point. But I yield.
So if that will move to Senator Everhart, after which Senator Janes will be our final comment on this topic.
Yeah, so I know you guys said that you end up losing money from the parking division every year, and I guess this idea is going to kind of aid in that. However, I know that like there's a lot of students that may, have a lower socioeconomic status and can't pay those parking citations or have a hard time paying for them because they budget so tightly. Have you guys ever thought about implementing a donations for citations type of program where a student can come and do community service to pay off that citation? Or maybe this is an idea that I got from the Big 12 conference, because I see a lot of the other Big 12 schools doing this. But there was also another school that said like you can pay $80 or 80% worth of your citation. So say it's a $100 citation, you pay $80 worth of like canned items or menstrual products that go back to our shop. So that way you're giving back to the community, even if you don't have the ability to pay that citation. Is this something that you guys would consider in the future? Just because I know sometimes it can be difficult for students to pay those citations.
Yeah, I think the council could certainly entertain any of those ideas. I've not personally heard of them, so that's something new to me. The other thing to keep in mind is some of the violations are for safety reasons. Some of the most of the streets, especially in the campus town kind of area, are alternate side for a reason. One, so that the streets don't just become storage. Also, it's difficult to get streets plowed if you have cars parked on both sides all the time. So there's some safety issues with some of those, but they're good ideas.
Yeah, and I guess that would more or less like apply to like the on-campus parking if there's some type of violation there, whether you just park in the wrong spot or your meter runs out of time, whatnot. Is that?
For the on-campus, that'd be him.
Yeah, is that something that you would consider implementing on campus?
Yeah, so our director of parking who reports to me, we have talked about it, and our student advisory board, actually this meeting that we had on Monday talked about this exact idea, and it is something that we would entertain it moving forward.
Awesome, I yield, thank you.
Senator Janes.
So I know this might be a little bit jumping to the next one, but like with the rise of Sci-Town, that's becoming a big thing. There's going to be even less parking. Do you and the parking team sit around and think about how this can lead to even more like parking violations, and or like how has there been strategies to help mitigate this loss that's been going on in the parking division? Like I know you said like we don't implement these technologies and stuff. Yeah.
I think it's more him than me.
Yeah, yes, Sci-Town would be mine. Which I'm excited about. But there is this piece where people believe that we're losing parking with SciTown, which we are not. The amount of parking that we had before SciTown, we will have once SciTown is implemented. Part of that is the strategy that was taken with changing to 90-degree parking instead of angled parking. You do gain more spots when you do things like that. And then we do have a transportation advisory committee that talks about these issues, that gives me and campus senior leaders recommendations annually. There are spots for student government members on that, and student government currently has no representation on there. So I'm going to push that out, that it would be great. This is the time right now where we're talking about fees, fines, all of those aspects, and parking operations as a whole.
Got it, thank you.
And so with that, we'll move on to briefly consider a related topic, private tailgating lots enforced by the Ames Police Department. And so the floor is open for any discussion or questions related to that topic. Starting with ex officio Clark.
So I was just personally curious, for the Haunted Forest lot, that is a private lot, correct? So,
Yes, correct.
okay. Are police allowed to, like, patrol that area? Or I'm just like, I don't know.
There's not many places that we can't go.
Yeah.
So, yes, we do have responsibility for the Haunted Forest lot, and we do police that. We take calls for service there, mostly on game day. So, yes, we're in that area.
Awesome. I was just curious about that.
Sure.
And so without objection, unless there are any other comments, we'll move on to the next item. Seeing no comments, we'll move back on the agenda a little bit and move into public transportation and policy, starting specifically with e-scooter policy. Floor is open.
I'm going to defer both these topics to Bronwyn. She's very interested in both the e-scooters, but also she is, I've appointed her to serve on the SciRide board. She's been there for, gosh, I forget, 3-4 years, at least 3 years. And so it's a great program. It's a great amenity. So maybe, Bronwyn, you could just touch on where we're at with e-scooters and maybe have some introductory comments on SciRide, and then we can take questions then.
Yeah, I'll touch briefly on the e-scooter topic first. I think that's first on the list, right? So there's kind of two things at play here. There's there are privately owned e-scooters, e-bikes, hoverboard thingies, all that type of thing, electric skateboards, Segways. You don't really see those anymore, but those privately owned ones. And the city is still working on a policy on those. Currently, technically, a motorized vehicles aren't allowed on shared use paths. They'd only be allowed on roads. But in reality, you see our shared use paths utilized by a lot of motorized vehicles, e-bikes, e-scooters, things like that. So we still have to work out that policy, which we are currently working on. So that's in the works for us. The other is the concept of a rental e-scooter company, like you see in other cities you might go to, where you pay by the minute or hour or whatever it is. Now those, I've been really interested in bringing them to Ames. I think they're good for a number of reasons. They're good for tourism. I think they're good too to fill in sort of the missing mile, they call it, if people do have transportation difficulties. Maybe they don't own a car, but public transit only gets them so far. Anyway, they can be a tool in that way too. But to be honest, I think that there's a stumbling block between what the university wants on its campus. And we would want to be in partnership with the university if we were to undertake something like that. So we don't want to bring them into town if the university is like, no. And that's kind of, I think, what we're working out right now. The university prides itself on its campus here. Even where you're supposed to have bikes is limited. Now, again, I know people sometimes disregard that, but you're supposed to only have them in certain places. And I think they're just worried that if we had a rental e-scooter system, that they would end up in places they're not supposed to be. So that's kind of, we're at an impasse there, I guess you would say. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts or questions on that one.
Vice Speaker Kamstra.
So personally, I ride a non-motorized skateboard on a daily basis, and I, one, find it frustrating when a sidewalk is full, but I also understand nobody wants to get clipped on the shoulder or elbow. And it's a hassle for me, and it's a hassle for everybody, so there's no point. So I usually just tend to walk it. I think more the concern of most of the students I've talked to in my own constituency, but also of my friends and everybody else, is they're just so sick of these people going 20 miles an hour past their shoulder, not saying a thing. And did see a scooter with a bell on it that I saw used today, so I was impressed by that. But I think the general consensus of the people that I've talked to is these are not beneficial. And when I tell them the motorized law on sidewalks, they're very like, well, why does nobody do anything about it? So.
Well, that's a good question. I think it's tricky to enforce that because they're there and then they're gone.
Right.
So I'm sure that, if there were someone watching a very dangerous situation, then yes, a police officer, Iowa State, would approach the person and be like, whoa, what you just did there was not cool. But I think it so often happens where nobody is witnessing that.
Right.
And yeah, so I think there are probably reasonable limits we could put in place. Like, again, on campus, they're not supposed to be there already.
Right.
So that is an enforcement issue. But I just don't know that we have the kind of staff you'd need to really enforce that all the time.
Right. And we talked about even Monday at our Chiefs Advisory Board of people just don't know that that's illegal.
Mm-hmm.
So even telling people, hey, you need to stick to the road. And I saw a bike fly through a stop sign today at at least 30 miles an hour. That's also still illegal.
Yes.
So maybe even getting the policy out on the city of Ames, and maybe we can change that if we do bring e-scooters to campus or the city, and just making sure people are aware that this is an illegal thing.
Right.
They're fun. I can agree that they are fun. I enjoy my skateboard that's not motorized, and some days I really wish it was. But I try to stick to the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the dangers involved with that, and I've accepted those as a person who decides to ride. So maybe even just getting a statement out of hey, these are illegal. If you'd like to see that change, maybe come talk to us. So.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that we're clear too, and there are very clear demarcation lines where authority and what the city can say is okay and what Iowa State says is okay. So any place on campus, anything that's owned by the Iowa State University, the city of Ames has no jurisdiction. They can build buildings without pulling a building permit from the city of Ames. They could go to the state to get a building permit. Chief Newton has the authority, and I think they probably have some kind of an overlap, so to speak. But the point is, and there's also institutional roads where property on both sides of a street is owned by the university. Actually, the university is responsible for the maintenance and oversight of that, and that's where it probably starts to get a little blurry. So when Brown refers to, the university has not been supportive of that, we can't say you can go ahead and have e-scooters and then you go ahead and use them at will on campus because that's not our jurisdiction. So if people are confused by it, it does seem it may seem confusing, but we respect one another's lanes, so to speak, and authority and responsibility from that standpoint. And that's why, to Brown's point, is we want to make sure that we're working together because it can get very confusing. You can geocache scooters so that they all of a sudden just stop working when you get to campus. Or certain areas out, away from campus, but that's gonna get frustrating for people on their riding mechanisms. And so we have had a conversation, but the point is right now that's the policy, and we respect the position that the university has taken so far. And I don't know if Chief, if you want to jump in and have any other comments as well too. And frankly, I'm a little surprised and encouraged to hear that there are some people that are pushback on this because I too, when I come to a meeting on campus, sometimes it's amazing. And I'm out walking around, there's people that just buzz by, and it's not just students, it's other people on bikes, and it's unsafe at times. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, this is it's a way more complicated topic. You know, when people first approached me about it, interestingly, peace, no vehicle can be on campus, and these are electric, so they are vehicles, unless it's a registered vehicle. There's actually administrative code on that. So we would even have to approach the legislature on pieces of change, because what governs us comes from Board of Regents, legislature, and other pieces. Also, when you look at the infrastructure of the university, the sidewalk system is not designed to handle and can't really handle e-scooters, bikes, those pieces. And I know a number of students have talked to me in the last couple weeks about pedestrian safety and some concerns and issues with that. So adding these into that without really taking a deep dive into our infrastructure would not be the right thing for us to do. And so I think, you know, if we're going to do this, we need to do it right, and we need to have the right people involved in really looking at what can our infrastructure handle and what can it not.
So if that will move over to Senator James.
Yeah, so I guess my first question is coming from like the riding into bikes around City of Ames. I've had like, other than that one path that's on, oh my God, why am I blanking on the name? That's on Ash, that has that protected bike route. There's not many bike routes there, so it leads to it being a lot of unsafe biking. So that means I'm like, sometimes I'm incentivized to go on the sidewalk. I don't. But like how, like, is there any plans to help try to like facilitate more at least painted bike paths?
Well, that's a great question. We have a pretty good map of them. Separated bike paths and buffered ones, like that little strip on Ash, they are very expensive. And while I would like to see more of that type of thing, I think we have a lot of budgetary things we have to balance, and so that is an unfortunate reality. But we try to do separated shared use paths. So a good example of an improvement we hope to make here is at South 16th, where it meets University. You know how it has gravel on either side there, kind of, and it's a 2-lane. We just, at our meeting last night, it was just last night, we talked about the widening of that. We're going to add on both sides 10-foot shared use paths that would be separated from the roadway by a right-of-way, according to the current proposal anyway. And so that we try to do that when we can too. It's like a separated shared use path. The Grand Avenue Extension has one of those. And so we try to do more and more of that over time. And then we do the on-street painted lanes too. We've done the 6th Street is a good example of where we have that. But we do have a plan for improvements of that type of thing. It's just that every year we can only bite off a few projects at a time. So it seems slow going. Yeah.
You haven't mentioned the master plan we're going through too.
That's true, yeah. We're working on a bike ped master plan that is meant to, I think, really evaluate where we have the worst gaps and trying to fill those in so that we have a more complete network. So we'll be doing that both for shared use paths, but also hopefully sidewalks, because I'm sure, as folks are aware too, there's a lot of places where the sidewalks don't go where you think they might, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure, is there still the opportunity for offering public input on that online? I can't say yes or no, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say you could check it out and see, but we would always take input too when it comes back to us for council, of course. You know, we'll be looking at that plan before its final approval, and we would certainly take input at that time.
And that's a citywide plan that we're looking at. Again, it does not include anything that Iowa State on campus or around that area, but I think Iowa State's involved with or in conversation with, so there is interconnectivity and appropriateness.
Got it. And then I think I yield.
And so for the final comment on this topic, we'll move over to Senator Cecil.
I just have kind of a question, kind of a suggestion. Driving around Ames at night, I have run into, not actually run into, but I have seen people on the road with e-scooters and electric devices that are not in any visible clothing. And this applies to bikes too, but with bikes, there are typically reflectors that come on them when you buy them. And with scooters, there aren't. And I have seen at least 2 scooters run stoplights or stop signs with no reflective clothing, and that's just a concern for the safety of the individual, but also people in vehicles. So is there any regulations already applying to that, or is there any thought to add such regulations?
Yeah, that's a good question too. At least for bicycles, and so I assume it would apply to scooters as well. We are required to have a front-facing headlight if you're traveling at night, and you're required to have at least a rear reflector, red. You can have a rear-facing light too, but the requirement is a front-facing headlight and at least a reflector that could be seen from the rear. That's on a bicycle. And so that's a good question, though, for whether that technically applies to scooters, given that we haven't updated our code yet. We'll check on that for sure, though, because it is a good point. And I think a lot of people probably don't even know it's required on a bicycle, to be honest. But it is if you're riding in Ames at night.
Thank you, Senator Cecil. And so with that, we'll move on to our final topic under the public transportation heading, the prospect of free side ride admission for City of Ames residents, if someone would like to jump in and add some context on this item.
I'll do this one, too.
Did I see Senator Swank? No? Okay. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, this is something that we, so as the mayor mentioned, I'm on the transit board, so I sit on Side Rides board. And this is a topic that we have looked at. And so I think it was within this past year, we hired a consultant and had them look at this concept and what it might cost SciRide. We don't actually get a lot of money in the fare box from the fares that we would take from citizens, I guess. So it's not that would add the cost, the bulk of the cost for SciRide. It's the fact that it's assumed that if citizens were allowed free access, the demand for services would be higher. So we'd start getting demands for more routes and more places for SciRide to go, because right now it very much serves student hubs of living, but not necessarily all corners of the community. So I think SciRide's strategy is to really make sure they have a robust route network, and then start looking at how can we start maybe this concept of fare free. It's sort of fare free in the same way that students have it fare free, right? You pay at the beginning of the year, right? Well, for a resident, they would pay in the form of their property taxes, or as a renter paying that property tax to their landlord. And so, again, it's sort of a prepaid fare for both students and if we ever did implement it for residents. But I'd love to hear questions on this one.
Starting with Senator Azan.
I love SciRide, not gonna lie. So the question for the city council is, did you guys ever think about introducing the bus service from Ames to Des Moines? Because as a student, most of the international students especially, they don't have a car. And if they wanna do shopping or anything outside of Ames in Des Moines, probably, they struggle. So I reach out to SciRide to figure out if there's any, bus service that a student can avail. And unfortunately, they were like, unfortunately, there's no bus service that currently exists. The only option that you have is to look for Jefferson. But again, for Jefferson, it's a private, separate bus service. You have to pay a lot. There's no, student discount or something. And again, you have to schedule it well ahead of time. So that's, again, a hurdle. So maybe, did you guys ever think about introducing a bus service from Ames to Des Moines? So that's my question.
Yeah, I can jump in. Had the honor of being on transit board before I became mayor for about four and a half years, and we have an amazing bus system. And one of the questions was, could we start providing services between Ames and Nevada for sake of discussion for people that would be coming? It's a very complicated formula in how SciRide gets funded. There's 5 different funding sources. There's ISU, administration, there's ISU student government, there's the city of Ames puts in close to $2 million. And you have federal money, and then you have state money. So you have all these different pots coming in. And I think last time I knew, it was like over $2 million comes in from the federal government. And they have very specific formulas that they go by, and they look at metrics in terms of how many riders per revenue mile, essentially. And I mean, if you're a statistics student, you would love being on SciRide because there's so many numbers and so much analysis. And the challenge, even going from Ames to Nevada, is that the revenue, the miles will go up, but the revenue will actually be very low when there's less riders. And so all of a sudden what happens is you start getting into a death spiral, because as you get less and less riders and driving more and more miles, the federal government says, well, gee, you're not very efficient anymore, and they would reduce the funding. And all of a sudden that becomes, then you got to start cutting, reducing routes. And so to try and go to, I mean, I understand and sympathetic to the plight. I just think that is going to be economically unfeasible because of the number of people that be riding back and forth. I know when I was on SciRide, there was some rumors about possibly some kind of an express service, because actually DART goes up to Ankeny now. That's a Des Moines bus service, and they'll do an express route back and forth for commuters and for those individuals. There was some talk quite a while ago about an Ames to Des Moines, not SciRide, but going back and forth. So I wish there was a better answer, but I think that economically, and especially COVID just knocked the socks off of SciRide. We were running almost 7 million riders. COVID went way, way down. Fortunately, so did everybody else in the nation. So there's a reset, but it's been slowly going up. But ridership is really, really important in terms of being able to get and draw down revenue, and it also helps pay for equipment, because I think about 80% of the bus costs as well as facilities has been paid for by federal government through grants. If we had to pay for all that, it would be extremely expensive, out of our own pocket. So, and just to Brown's point too, in terms of trying to get, if we do fare free for residents and going up to trying to get more demand for services, at last count, we were 93% of the riders were students. So less than 10% of the riders in Ames are non-students. So if all of a sudden if that demand starts going way up, you can imagine the amount of stress that could put on the system. We have actually, SciRide is recognized as being one of the leaders in the nation for public transit in a university town. We set the standard. We are so good. But there's a lot of challenges that go along with it.
Yeah, so just want to follow up on that. Maybe thinking about like having one per week, like one bus service in case if someone needs to go to do, shopping or any other stuff that is not currently available in Ames, right? So that might be like one option. And because if we look at the bigger picture, again, we are minimizing the pollution that the cars actually generate, So in terms of sustainability and everything, right? So we are in the right direction if we can actually promote the public transport. So maybe like introducing once per week might be a better solution in terms of economical stability.
I guess I'll write that down. So.
Yeah, I made a note of the suggestion. Yeah, thank you. And unfortunately, I have to hit the road, but so I have to go pick up my daughter on time. So I have to leave you all, but I appreciated being here, and I'm sorry I have to run, but the mayor and Anita can take it from here. So
Thanks, Bronwyn. Appreciate coming.
And so with that, we'll see Senators Trotter, followed by Everhart and Pursley, and those will be the final comments on this topic.
So I guess, a couple things. We've been hearing in student government nebulous descriptions of a fare increase for students. I'll admit, my initial reaction had been that fare increase was from the free in the moment to a not free, but now I've realized, would it just be an increase of that upfront cost? Okay, because if it was that prior one and then we were going to make it free for the residents, I was a little confused on the dynamics of that.
Yes, and actually, SciRide board is made up of at least 2 representatives from student government, a city council member, a member that I appoint at large from a citizen, The Vice President of Business and Finance, I think it's still Sean Norman, I believe is, maybe they changed it. Maybe it's Mike Norton on it. Yeah, so it's the chief, it's the legal counsel, and then our city manager. So that makes up the board. And so they make the decisions, and so I think it comes back to student government in terms of a fee increase or in terms of what you're going to, pay. And so I think if that increase would probably be decided upon, I think by you guys, right, in terms of whatnot. So, and that would be, you would still be able to continue to be able to access Cyrate. It was very interesting. I was at Purdue University last week for an inner-city visit, and they also have, we call it fare free. And they choose to say students don't have to pay anything extra to ride the bus. And I thought it's all in semantics, because you do pay. You pay I think it's every semester you pay a certain amount of a fee in order to ride, Cyride. And thank you for doing that, because that really helps underwrite the service. So if someone says, well, I want to ride, fare free. Well, actually, you are paying for it. It just happens to be you're paying for it up front, as Brahma said, in advance. So,
I'm a massive proponent of public transit. I'm from the Bay Area, and we have a lot of good systems out there. And so, my kind of suggestion is, if we want to continue with the idea of like phasing out cars and such, the implementation of a trolley-like system of having pre-wired buses, or increasing bus routes in general, or maybe even adopting a light rail system to somewhere, because it always adds economic activity. The amount of money that I spent at the local bakery on the other side of town is in the hundreds of dollars over the last few years, and I would not have been able to do it had I not been on the buses. That's very anecdotal, but I think that any improvement to Cyride will inevitably show its benefit. I yield.
Senator Pursley?
Hi, so have you guys communicated with Iowa City about their CAN bus system at all? Because I know in the past year they just made their CAN bus free for all residents in the city of Iowa City. So if you were thinking about doing this, I'm sure that they would have a lot of good ideas, because they just implemented that.
Yeah, there's my understanding is that there's a lot of networking that goes on all the time between different different public transit systems. I can't speak specifically to your your question regarding that. So, but I would assume that there's probably some tracking or following. And I think the other thing is important is data. Let's get some data, find out what the ridership's going to be. Again, I think that Cyride budget last time I knew it was around $14 million a year, and that's without having like any debt. That's paying for operational costs. We have well over 100 buses. I think we have 180 drivers, plus you have maintenance staff and the like. So it's a pretty big operation. So if we're going to go fare free or pay in addition, not having to pay anything addition for all residents, they're going to do a really deep dive analysis on what it's going to do for operational costs. Because as we all know, if we add more services and we have more, each route used to be about $130,000 per route to add just one route in the city. So if we're going to add some more routes, that money's got to come from somewhere. And right now there's a formula. And so you would help pay for that increased service. It won't be just falling to the taxpayers as well, too.
Senator Swank.
Yeah, so the state of Iowa received $43 million from the Biden administration to convert our buses from diesel to electric, and I was wondering if Ames received any of that funding.
I can't speak to that specifically. We do have, Anita, I think, is it seven electric buses either here or on the way. And I think there might be maybe a couple more in the pipeline. Is that, anyway, can you help me with, do you remember I know Barb came and talked. Barb is our director of Cyride.
Yeah,
I'm grasping for straws here a little bit. Help me out.
Yeah, it does. if I recall correctly also, there are 3 more that are on the way, and they intend to increase those as existing buses are no longer in service or need to be replaced. We will be replacing those with electric buses.
Yeah. Just to give you an idea of context, I mean, the cost, a diesel bus is about $450,000. Electric bus is about $1 million. So there's a huge cost increase, and so when we're trying to do dollar matches and getting grants, it has a big it has big implications. Certainly, with part of our climate action plan, we are trying to reduce our carbon footprint. Electric buses are part of that, as well too. I don't know if we have any Proterra buses, but you probably noticed, Proterra went out of business. So if you have bus companies that are building buses today and go out of business 3 or 4 years, how are you going to get parts? How are you going to get, service and warranty? But specifically to your question, I don't know. I can't tell you. We're not the state of Iowa gave money specifically to, SciRide. But we have gotten federal grants, and actually we have very good grant writers on SciRide staff that help go out and get money to help buses, and once in a while we'll actually get an extra bonus one because of the number of riders that we have and the efficiency of our system.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, and I do apologize, we're now out of time on this item, and so having completed public transportation and policy, we'll move straight into housing and property.
Mr. Vice President, I move to table housing and property to after our open discussion.
It's been moved and seconded to table housing and property with the option of picking it back up should we have time at the end of the meeting. Is there any objection to making this amendment? Seeing no objection, it shall be made. Meaning we'll move directly into climate plan, action, and sustainability, starting with recycling on campus and in Ames. The floor is open for any discussion on this topic. Vice Speaker Campstra.
Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering if you could touch a little bit on, I know the recycling in Ames is kind of misunderstood because we do some and we also do a lot with our garbage and like separating out that stuff. So if you could just give a brief description of what Ames is doing with recycling.
Sure, that actually is a current topic at council level. When you throw stuff away in your garbage and it's picked up and it goes to the resource recovery plant, essentially it gets sorted from a standpoint of any metals gets taken out by a giant magnets essentially, and that gets recycled. Everything else that can be burned is burned in our power plant and converted into electricity. It is very expensive to be burning trash in terms of using our natural gas. And I think it's about 40%, roughly 45% of what is thrown away cannot be burned. So we hope that you're using the glass. You go to grocery stores, a lot of times you'll see a yellow dumpster. You can throw glass in that. We can't burn glass, and it makes a mess in our resource recovery plant. That's one way, and we do sell it, and there's a market for that. Certainly aluminum cans. Hopefully you're getting the 5 cent back, by going and getting those returned. We do try and extract metals. Now, with that said, we now are starting to get working on a pilot program for cardboard. And there are some dumpsters actually by the power plant where you can deposit cardboard, and those are getting filled up so quickly and getting used so much, even by just city departments and city personnel that know about it, including me. And there's a big market for clean cardboard. We don't want to see pizza containers, thrown in there. It's got remnants of pizza in it, but clean cardboard boxes, Amazon boxes and stuff. People really like that. So I think we're going to start seeing potentially more cardboard depositing. We're looking at requiring the garbage collection companies. We're looking at it. It's not in place yet, but offering curbside recycling, where you can go ahead and have recyclable materials, plastics, certain plastics, glass and cardboard as well. So it's something that's consistent with our climate action plan, but also looking at ways to enhance it. And certainly burning certain plastics isn't really beneficial either. So we have a lot of room for improvement in the community on that. But as anything that goes on, everything is complex and intricate, but it's something that's being explored and talked about even right now.
Senator Azan?
So the question will be, what are some initiatives that the city council is doing right now in order to raise awareness among the masses, especially in terms of recycling? As you talk about that, like certain things needs to be go in certain container. Like, you know, for me, I personally struggle to actually find out the containers that are like, you know, like pictures or something, you know, marked on it that this is for plastic, this is for glass, this is for like other, you know, cans or whatever. Because if you mix them together, it's gonna be tough to actually recycle because not everything can be recycled. So the point is, maybe like a suggestion will be to actually raise awareness, maybe like a picture, like something, you know, more visual or appealing, or maybe like, you know, on social media or something, you know, any efforts in that regard going on currently? Maybe you want to talk about that thing?
Thank you. And so just to be clear is that right now, we're not publicizing the cardboard recycling yet because we're just getting started, and we have a agreement that they're trying to develop with Metro Waste Authority and also a private hauler that wants to actually purchase the cardboard. So that's not, we can't roll that out yet. We do have a food waste deposit where you can actually take, you know, table scraps and put that in. That is being composted, and that is being adopted, but that's also, I think, being publicized on social media. But you're right, we probably could do a better job, you know, on that. And then the glass, and I can't speak to how we are publicizing that, but we don't have any tin can, aluminum can recycling mechanism. It's just if it goes in to your trash, it gets essentially extracted out, you know, through a separation process. So as I said, we don't do anything with plastics in terms of trying to recycle them right now. What happens is it gets combusted, you know, in generating electricity in our power plant. So long term, we hope to be able to. Obviously, we all know there's certain plastics that we can't recycle. They're just not able to be. They're not usable by a recycler. So.
I think there are some professors working in Department of Chemistry, like, and their projects are about recycling or upcycling plastic. So the whole point of plastic, again, plastic is like, you know, it's not good for environment, especially with the time period that it has. It can survive. So maybe like collaborating with like different professors might be like a good idea because they have like the whole grants and like set up to actually figure out how to recycle plastic as well, or upcycle plastic. And the second comment will be like separate containers actually help in terms of like separation process. And I struggle to find out separate containers for different, you know, plastic or cans or whatever. It's just one container and you dump everything in there. And it's basically like, again, it's a long process when you have to separate it out using magnet or whatever. But if you have like separate containers, that might be more helpful. So I yield with that.
Yeah. Councilwoman Rollins, if you were looking to chime in.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to speak a little bit to your comments. You are right that it can seem confusing here. I've lived in Ames over 30 years, but in lots of other places, and still when my children come back, they're really confused that we don't have the type of recycling that you're talking about. But Ames is sort of unique in that it started with a process where individual haulers could be part of that stream of taking up waste here. And so we are, though, talking as a council about how to address that and how to make sure that we can, our next step will be one where we are intentional about that recycling piece and making that easier for people to understand what to do and how to do it. But you're correct, too, in terms of education right now. There are things that we could be doing, and we are talking about that as a council. And you're correct in terms of the research going on here. I had a great conversation with someone who was telling me that one of the professors, Dr. Sadow, has created an asphalt, and there's a company in Boone that's now doing that. And so, yes, we do want to be looking at those opportunities to partner with research at Iowa State as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Dr. Sado, and again, a couple of professors from Ames Lab also working on that thing too.
Thank you.
Senator Everhart.
Yeah, so you had said that glass can't be burned within the facility that you guys have. Do you have anything like in place for like the separation of glass? Okay, that answers my first question.
Yes, in fact, I think of several grocery stores like Fairway, Hy-Vee, look for a giant yellow dumpster. It should say, please deposit glass here. If you go to the resource recovery plant, there are containers there. I think there's also one on by City Hall. They're located around some of the parts of the community. So it's just, and it's any kind of glass.
Okay.
Not like windshields, or I think there's certain glasses they don't want, but.
Yeah, and so my next question, I guess, would be if we were to implement some type of glass containers or like recycling containers on campus, if we were to like work with the city on, I'm sure we would work with the city on that, but have you guys ever considered like donating all of that glass to the Gaffers Guild on campus? It's our glass blowing studio, and I know that glass prices can be high for certain types of glass, and that would just, I guess, be one way that we could build a better community with the city on campus.
So I'm not familiar with that, but I can certainly ask about that. In terms of recycling on campus, again, that's where that's gonna become an Iowa State initiative versus the city coming in and doing it. We'll certainly be interested in partnering if that's a possibility. So what's it called?
It's called the Gaffers Guild. It's located in the Student Innovation Center. We're actually one of the few campuses within the U.S. to have a glass blowing studio on our campus, so that's pretty unique about Iowa State. And I know that they're always, looking for materials to use within their classes. If you go online, they make some pretty cool pieces and they resell them. So, yeah, I guess just looking into that.
Who's in charge of that?
Let
Maybe
me.
why don't you, if you can get the information to.
Yeah, I can
to the
send it to ex officio Clark.
And then we can pass that on to those who are in charge of that and see if they can make some kind of connection and see if there's any merit to that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I yield.
Finally, on this topic, we'll hear from Vice Speaker Kamstra.
So me and my roommates try pretty hard to recycle our cans, and recently I know that Hy-Vee closed all their can deposit centers, and the one deposit center that is left, we haven't been able to make it out. So I was wondering, is that like a Ames City run like deposit center for those cans?
Yeah. No, we're not involved with that whatsoever. That's yeah. The short answer is no, we're not involved. That's an independent business that operates, and I can't speak to why Hy-Vee. I mean, I can assume why Hy-Vee doesn't want to do it anymore. It's any of us that go in there and dump cans, it's kind of not necessarily.
It's pretty gross. I wear gloves.
Yeah. So anyway, point being is that no, we have nothing to do with it, and we have no. I think the money that gets back that's refunded, I'm not sure how that even goes, if it goes through the state or if it's a private entity. So
There you go. That's all I had. I yield. Thank you.
Senator Zahn, were you looking for another speaking privilege on this? We'll hear from Senator Zahn, and then we'll move on to the next item.
So just a follow-up thing that I want to say on this Hy-Vee, maybe the council can actually incentivize the small business owner somehow to actually have this recycling initiatives within their small business. That might be helpful, and I yield.
All right, and so with that, while we're on the climate action plan and sustainability category, I would entertain a motion to strike the goals and plans sort of catch-all in order to have an open discussion for the remainder of the time. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any objection to making this amendment? Seeing none, it shall be made, and we'll move straight into open discussion. And so this is an opportunity for us to engage with the council, share our ideas, and ask any other questions that haven't been answered tonight, starting with Senator Momini.
Hi. So I was actually talking to another senator about this today, but as you know, a lot of people on campus and off campus have dogs, and we do only have one dog park in Ames, and I just wanted to kind of throw it out there that it is, like, if you live on the west side, it's all the way on the other side of town, which is kind of inconvenient, and I was wondering if maybe it was possible to get started thinking about adding another one to the other side of town, or making the one that we do have more accessible to people who might not be able to pay the fees.
Where would you suggest locating it? A second one?
I'm not exactly sure where, but I know some parks in Des Moines have like dog parks that are within the parks. We have plenty of wonderful, beautiful spaces in Ames that we could maybe implement a dog park within a park that we already have.
We have a Parks and Recreation Commission that we can certainly pass this, point on and see if there's any consideration. They report to the city council. City council will make that final decision, but since they oversee that, but I'll certainly bring that. I'll ask about that. They thought about it, and you're right. It's the one that does exist is very remote down there by Hunsaker Youth Sports Complex, and if you live up on the north side of town, it's a ways to get there. So
Yeah, just wanted to bring that up, but thank you. I yield.
Senator Azan?
Yeah, I just want to echo with Senator Momney. And again, the cost of the park is expensive. So maybe like thinking about subsidizing that one, it's pretty expensive. I don't remember the exact number off top of my head, but it's, again, only one dog park, and you have to pay. Maybe Senator Everhart can talk about the payment. I don't know. I yield.
All right, so the floor is open for any other open discussion. Senator Everhart?
Yeah, so what Senator Azan was referencing is the fee that you have to pay in order to use the facilities. I know that it's a relatively, it is a pretty hefty cost. Like I kind of said earlier, like a lot of college students budget very tightly, and I don't know, maybe considering like doing some type of college discount for, those students that have a dog on campus. Yeah, that's all I got. I yield.
Are there any other senators who would like to speak for open discussion? Seeing none, unfortunately, without time to readopt the housing and property category, we'll move into closing comments for this evening, starting with ex officio clerk.
I'd like to start out by saying thank you for everyone for coming out tonight. I feel like this has been a really productive meeting, a lot of good conversation, a lot of good information. So I'd just like to once again thank everyone for coming out.
Mayor Hale, if you'd like to add any closing
sure.
comments.
No, I would agree with ex officio. We appreciate the feedback. I have taken some notes. But I look like I'm looking down. I'm actually writing. So I can't answer how expensive it is to go to a dog park. I don't go there, but we'll find out. And I'll also mention that we love students getting engaged and involved in the community. And I know that there's a number of Greek houses that are involved with doing mentoring. And if you're interested, there's a lot of kids that would really benefit from your engagement with them. An hour a week to spend some time with them and to just care about them. But we also have boards and commissions that we have about 120 individuals that serve on about 18 different boards and commissions in the city. And the application process is you can go online, you go to the City of Ames website. If you go into the search queue and just put in boards and commission application, you can apply online. You'll list all the different boards and commissions that there are. And initially, when they got set up, some of them, not all of them, some of them had like a one-year term, which was kind of designed to try and allow for students that might want to be on for 1 year. I've taken the policy now that if a student is interested and seems to be a great fit, even though it may be a 2-year term or a 3-year term, I'll go ahead and appoint them, knowing that they may not be able to serve their full term because the point is you may be graduating. Actually, I should change that. If you get appointed to a 3-year term, you have to stay here, so you can't move out. I just got to, this is a great idea. I'm going to go ahead and do that. We'll control from boards and commissions. No, just kidding. If you go ahead and, if you have to, resign, and we have people resign from time to time for personal reasons, so we have a gap to fill. So we have everything from Parks and Recreation to student representation on a property maintenance board. We have art boards. We have public library. So there's a broad cross section. Some would really not be a very good fit. But it's a great way. A lot of them will just meet once a month, and then maybe an hour or two, and that's about it. Some are more involved. So that's an opportunity to get engaged in the community. And the other thing is we're always looking for better ways to communicate what's going on in the city. I'm not sure how many of you were aware, maybe you all went to the Octagon Art Festival that happened at the end of September. But we're open to looking at other ways to have more festivals or events that go on in the downtown area that celebrate our diversity and also make people feel welcome as well too. So anyway, thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate the chance to come and engage with student government, and we'll look forward to doing it again in the spring.
Senator Zahn, if you had a question.
I have a quick question. So you mentioned about the board application. So I'm assuming that it's not a volunteer thing because most of the students they cannot work more than 20 hours per week. That's a policy for international students. So they are already engaged with kind of teaching responsibility or whatever. So maybe if there are any volunteer opportunities within the council or the board that you want to talk about, that will be awesome, because I'm assuming it's a paid work that you were referring. Right?
No, this
Oh,
is all
okay.
this is all
So it's a volunteer thing.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good question.
Well, thank you. Before we adjourn in just a moment, I just want to thank everyone who came tonight to represent the city, to represent our police departments, and everyone who is here tonight from student government. And so thank you to everyone. We had some great discussion. I'd like to say we're going to take a brief 15-minute recess before we reconvene our Senate meeting to let you get up and stretch your legs a little bit. And then secondly, if you had a topic you wanted to discuss tonight that we didn't get to, there are definitely going to be more opportunities to interact with the city council. And ex officio clerk is always happy to take topics to city council to discuss. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn? We are adjourned. Go Cyclones. Hello. Good evening. The time is 7:19, and I hereby call this meeting of the Student Government Senate to order. So we'll begin with a roll call. When I read your name, please say here or present. Gopa. Azan. Rolls. Chenoweth. Everhart. Kamstra.
Present.
Kloppenstein. Hackbarth.
Here.
Kuehler. Atikos. Swank. Janes. Reichert. Mahoney. Trotter. Moisango. Cecil. Wellman. Momini. Pursley. And Schneider. With that, we do have quorum for the evening. We'll now move into the Pledge of Allegiance led by Speaker Hackbarth. And so with that, we'll begin tonight's Senate program led by Vice Speaker Kamstra.
I'm gonna try to give it from here, but the issue is I can't see the screen. Yeah, I'm just gonna do this. Hold on. Hold, please. One second. Keep changes. There we go. All right, there we go. All right. So yeah, this is one of the topics that I wanted to discuss at the working meeting that we had to postpone due to lack of attendance. So this is a process of how to contact your constituency council, whether that's Residence Hall Association or fraternity council, sorority council, or colleges. Obviously, this is going to be difficult for UROC senators to apply to, but I encourage you still to reach out to at least your council, which I know a lot of you also sit on. So with that, though, I will be showing you how to do this. So if you'd like to bring out your laptop to attempt to do it, this is the one program you'll be allowed to use your laptop during. So, email list presentation. I now get to exit my presentation and go to Outlook. So there's two different ways that you can make this. This is the easiest way, in my opinion, on your email. So as you can see, here's my email. I have lots of things going on. But if I go and click on the People's tab, click on this People's tab, you can see a new menu pull up. Your contacts, I don't have a contact in here because you have every contact at Iowa State already in your list. So it searches automatically once you start typing a name. However, I do have these lists. So I teach a class, so I have a list for all of my students, and I can make a new list. And let's do it this way. So if you go up here to create a new contact, you can hit the down arrow, new contact list. Let's just go Chief Officers, stugov. You can create such list. It's going to make you type in the emails you would like to add first. So I'll start with, oh, look at that. There's Anna right there. And then I will add Quinn, et cetera, and so forth. I'm not going to add all the chief officers. But you can add a description if you'd like. That way you can separate your lists. But doing so will create the list. If I then go back to my email, I can create a new email and go Chief Officers, Student Government, maybe? It's supposed to. Okay, that didn't work. That's embarrassing. But you can click on here. You can also click Send an Email, and it will open up a new tab, and then I can create that email. So this is the best way for me to encourage you all to reach out to your constituency councils. But then some of you might ask, I don't know what the email of my constituency council is. Okay, College of Human Sciences Council, if I can spell. Wow, still got it wrong. Click on that. Look at that. There is all of the emails of everybody that's involved in your specific council. You can Google that. If you were not nominated by them, obviously there's special considerations for that, like Senator Rolls, who is in the process of making his council, so shout out Rolls for that. But you can also do this for clubs that are in regard to your council. So like the Exercises Medicine Club is under the College of Human Sciences. And let's say I wanted to make a list with all of the clubs that are in there. I can look up the Exercises Medicine Club, Iowa State University, and it should list, if you click on the Officers tab, every single person's email once you click on that name. And then you can add this to that list. So I encourage you all, when you have things that should be going up for debate after first read, if you would like the outside opinion of your constituents, I encourage you to use this as one of your methods. Besides that, if you really feel moved to go and table at any of the main buildings regarding your college or housing area, you can also do such. But yeah, that's how to make a list. That's where to find contact information. If you were to type any of those names without the email, they would also still pop up because Iowa State puts every single person's email in your list already. So with that, communication methods besides just email, I encourage you all to go to constituency council meetings. This is the best way for you to maintain a relationship with them. If you do not maintain a relationship with them, I have sent them all an emails telling them that they need to tell us, because that would qualify as a nonfeasance, because you are there to represent them and your constituents. I would encourage you all to send regular reports to your council presidents. I'm typing up my report right now for the month of October to send them information about Senate bills, TCU, and various other things. That way they can stay updated, because the reason that so many people don't know who we are is because we don't tell them who we are. So making sure that you're sending these emails is gonna show them the purpose of why we're here and what we're doing. And then create email lists with clubs that relate to your council. Obviously that's limited for sororities and fraternities, but if you really felt inclined to add every single chapter president to a list and send them an email, you so could. So go you. When should I reach out to them? I would say a minimum, or I guess frequency, a maximum of biweekly. I don't think every week is too much, but I personally do monthly at the end of the month and send my report. Or if I have an issue for the coming week, I would send an email to them about that. So I would also encourage you all to go to your meetings for your constituency councils. Mine only meets once a month, and sadly it's typically on Wednesday nights. So that's why I send them updates to talk about. And then I would also ask, reach out to them and ask them if they want to collaborate on anything you're doing. I just reached out to the College of Human Sciences and Exercises Medicine to collaborate on a project that I'm working on for next semester. So, promise I'm almost done. What should I say? Tell them about opportunities for involvement. Committees that we have open. We just had one mentioned to us by Chief Newton today. That one's open. Obviously, we have a lot of senators that would love to get involved in that, but if there's a lot of at-large positions, we can also put people not in student government on there and get more student voices involved in change on campus. Tell them about projects you're working on, update them about Senate bills and discussion, and then get feedback on issues to be seen in the future. Or if they have anything that they have an issue with, you're their person to talk about that here. So, yeah. That's all I have. Comments, concerns?
Floor is open for any questions.
With that, I yield.
Seeing no questions, thank you to the Vice Speaker. Oh, Senator Zahn, were you looking for a question?
Yeah, question. So in some constituency, we have more than one representation. For example, for LAS, we can talk with each other and only one person can go, or you want us to all of us to go there?
I mean, if your council feels that you guys have communicated effectively, then one person would be enough. But I mean, I personally am going to work hard with the nominee that's up for CHS to both collaborate with the council, because I think that's important. So
sounds good. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Everhart.
I was just going to ask if you can send this PowerPoint out in the Teams later. That would be great.
Would you like a PowerPoint on how to make the contact list? Because that's not in the PowerPoint. Or just this?
You could do both. Just
okay, cool.
Whatever you feel like doing.
I'll
That's
make
all.
that.
Speaker Hackbarth.
One moment. I would also just like to speak on your inquiry, Senator Everhart. I do post all of the programs that we have after the fact. If they are not linked in the agenda because the individual did not share them with me ahead of time, they will be posted in the Teams. There's a specific folder called Programs underneath the general files that will also be having all of those presentations as well.
Senator Not Cecil? No comments? Are there any further questions? Seeing none now, thank you to Vice Speaker Kamstra for tonight's program. And so with that, we'll move into open forum. Open forum shall serve as an opportunity for students to speak about issues relevant to the student body. And so if anyone tonight is here for open forum, I would ask that you approach the podium at this time.
Oh, that's already up there. Look at that.
Seeing no one here for open forum, we'll move into adopting the agenda for this evening. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
It's been, we can take that as a second. Moved and seconded. Is there any objection to doing so? Seeing no objection, it shall be adopted. With that, we'll move into adopting the minutes of last Senate. Is there a motion to do that?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any objection to approving those minutes? Seeing none, they shall be approved. And so we'll go straight into committee reports, starting with the Rules Committee with Speaker Heckbarth.
All right, hello everybody. So Rules met on Monday, right after we got back from TCU for the Big 12 conference. We had a very light meeting purely because we just simply did not have a lot of legislation to review. In fact, we had no legislation to review before this week, seeing as we had voted on, or we had seen the resolution that was up for tonight 2 weeks ago. So we mostly talked about how other schools handle their rules committees or rule committee adjacents. And we talked about how they handled their legislative body and any ideas that we had regarding maybe some new programs or some new systems that we would like to implement here. But it was a very quick, simple meeting. It was probably our record time of 20 minutes. And I'm very happy for that. As always, Rules meets Monday nights at 6:15 in room 2210 of the Memorial Union. You are always welcome to join us.
Are there any questions for Rules? Seeing no questions, we will move on to the Finance Committee with FD Hirsch.
Hi, everyone. Finance Committee met yesterday at 5:15 in room 2210. We had a really good discussion. We approved a line item transfer. We're currently making revisions on our PNC, which is our priorities and criteria, the document that binds student government funding. Really, it was really good conversation, super happy. TCU was awesome, learned a lot about other schools' finances. Actually, we have one of the bigger budgets out of all the Big 12 schools. Our finances are way more complex than most schools. They don't even know what Workday is. So I'm really proud that we're able to implement Workday and use that for students because it's a great skill. It was really beneficial. I'm happy I went. I have some exciting ideas that I want to bring to the position. It's a little bit too early on to talk about now, but I'm looking forward to giving updates in the future.
Are there any questions for Finance? Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the PR Committee with our Senior Director of Communications.
Okay, so I have a good amount tonight, so just bear with me. We should have access to the new website soon, hopefully by the end of this week, so we should have an update for you guys at next Senate meeting on that. Very excited about it. PR is working on signage for all of the committees for the Expo. So if anyone has any good pictures of campus and or student government events that you think would be a good representation of maybe the committee you're on, things like that, even if you're not sure, just please send them my way. We're looking to put pictures on the signs, so I'm open to any and all. If everyone can please fill out that Thanksgiving potluck form, whether you're planning on attending or not, it literally only takes like 15 seconds to put a yes or a no. We just want to make sure we have an accurate head count of who to expect. I'll be resending it in the general chat in a few minutes, so please fill that out. If anyone does or is interested in graphic design, PR meeting next week, we're going to have a good amount of time dedicated to working on graphics for committees and other projects. So anyone's welcome to come sit in, provide constructive criticism, help, anything like that. So if you're interested in that, we meet at 7 p.m. We will be in the Student Innovation Center on Tuesday. So if you need more details, please just message me. We will be looking to start the podcast after Thanksgiving break since we're focusing on the Expo and website right now. We are in the process of talking to a vendor for apparel, just getting some more details budget-wise. And then final, Senator Everhart has been named vice chair of the PR committee. And that's all I have.
Are there any questions for PR? Vice Speaker Kamstra.
Is there any way that we could get headshots for all of senators and executive branch and judicial for their own emails, respectively?
We can definitely look into that. I know our director of IT is looking at doing headshots and committee photos, so I can see if we can add that to the list as well, because we do want to make sure our website has updated pictures of everybody. So that would be pretty easy to add in if we're already planning on taking pictures. So, yes.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the IDEA Committee if there is a designated representative from IDEA here tonight. Seeing none, we'll move on to student initiatives. The same applies. Oh.
Hi, everyone. So tomorrow my committee meets, and we're gonna go over the pumpkin smash. That's been our big event. And then we've been talking about pumpkins, just the specifics of that, and then I've been filling out the forms that are needed. So yeah.
Are there any questions at this time for SI? Seeing no questions, we'll move on to the Local Affairs Committee with ex officio Clark.
Hey, y'all. Once again, thanks for the great discussion tonight. I think the council really appreciated all the questions and comments and got a lot out of it. So once again, thank you. So I'm going to be sending out materials either tonight or tomorrow in regards to an election coming up November 7th. I believe it's a school board election, very local, but still equally important. We did not meet last week in the MU at 1 p.m. on Thursdays, but we will be meeting tomorrow. We just sort of went over more of the idea of having a local affairs calendar and the idea of having a easier to access calendar. But that's about it.
Are there any questions? No questions, we'll move on to Senator Kloppenstein.
Olivia's not here, so I shall speak on the Sustainability Committee's behalf. We've been working on projects more within the subcommittees. Just to list a few of the many projects we're working on, we're looking at working with recycling within the residence halls a little bit more, as well as tech recycling on campus and the compostable cutlery within the dining centers. We're super excited about those projects, and we're continuing to work on them.
All right. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions for sustainability, we will move on to health and wellness. Is there a designated representative for health and wellness? Senator Kuehler.
Director Spahn isn't here, so I'll give a little bit of a brief update. We met today at our usual meeting time, which is 4 p.m. on Wednesdays, and basically what we're doing is talking about a group project that the whole committee is going to work on, and then we're also in the process of solidifying individual projects that committee members would like to work on. So I'm sure Director Spahn wanted those, I guess, solidified by our next meeting. So I, myself, or Hirsch will give a more in-depth update of some of the more specific projects next week. That's it.
Are there any questions for health and wellness? Seeing no questions, we'll move on to legislative ambassadors. Is there a representative for legislative, or Director of Governmental Affairs?
Hey everyone, it's Madeline. I was able to meet with our state relations officer on Tuesday, which was really exciting. We locked down that Tuesday, February 20th, will be State Day at the Capitol, so please put that on your calendar. It would be great to see you all there to represent Iowa State. I spoke with her about what our priorities are going to be for the year. Tentatively, she thinks we would be, non-controversial to do affordability, student safety, which would include sexual assault, and then mental health, which we just received the $1 million for from the Board of Regents, which is really exciting. TCU was also great for myself. I was able to meet all the other Director of Government Affairs, and so we're starting planning for Big 12 on the Hill. Tentatively for that, they want to do affordability and academic freedom, including a lot of work with athletics on the NIL branding deals. So that's very exciting. If you have questions or if you want to come speak at the Capitol, want to come do something, shoot me an email. It should be in the MIS, and it'd be great to hear from you. Thank you.
Floor is open for any questions now if you have them. Seeing no questions, we'll move into the other category. This is an opportunity for anyone who sits on an external committee, whether it's with the university or the city, to share any updates that otherwise might not be covered, starting with Senator Janes.
Yeah, so from SciRide, the first thing is on electric vehicles. I know there was a little bit of confusion. So one of the things that makes it a little bit slower is the manufacturer we picked used to have a plant in America but closed it. So it's making it a little bit harder for us to progress with them because there's not easy local access for maintenance and stuff. And then we'll look into further conversations because I know some people had other questions. And then we just had our SciRide monthly meeting, and for updates, an REG contract was passed, so we will continue using their biodiesel, as well as they're going to be implementing a new Optimus system on 4 buses, which is to allow it to use biodiesel, as well as just like regular gas, just in case. It's typically for like farther driving cars, but just in case something happened. And then we're planning on talking to Barbara, which is the leader of SciRide, to have her come in just so you guys can ask more questions. And they do plan on bringing up to student fees to raise it. The student fees, I realize I said that twice, for students to be able to continue with inflation and with like predicted amounts of students that will be for enrollment.
Vice Speaker Kamstra.
So, sorry, I'll just give a quick update on Chiefs Advisory Board. Chief Newton was, and I kind of gave a little bit of snippets of what we already discussed, but yesterday the main items were the Iowa State Safe app and the Big 12 interest that it had in it. Nobody else had one from what I could tell, and a lot were interested, so we can brag about that here at Iowa State. And then moving Social Escape to the more predominant role on the app with such large interest in from the constituents that I've talked to. And then we talked about campus safety with pedestrian accidents and stuff like that ahead of today's resolution, and I got a report from them on that. And then we discussed also the addition of a town hall event with student government and the ISUPD for students to come in and discuss issues that we might not hear about. So, yeah, if you're interested in joining, let me or Chief Newton's here, so go talk to him too. So, yeah.
Our Director of Affordability.
Yeah, so the Open and Affordable Education Committee met on yesterday. Let me rewind that. Today at 2. I was not able to go, but some of the highlights were immediate access saved $1.2 million this year, and they're talking about redoing immediate access course materials for next year and changing it to more of a subscription service rather than like a book-by-book thing. And that's about it.
So with that, the floor is open for any questions for those who have already shared or any further external committee updates. Seeing none, we will now hear comments from the judicial branch.
Hello, everyone. Also went on the trip to TCU, and I discovered that there was a variety of different roles that different Supreme Courts and or similar bodies at other institutions have. I would like to possibly implement some of them to the best of our ability, just so that the court can do more things. But overall, I thought it was a productive trip. But further, for our Supreme Court, I met with 2 people that are interested in positions. And then further, we have mock trials cases that we're going to pick this Sunday, and then everyone will receive an email to participate. So yeah, thank you.
Floor is open for any questions for the court. Seeing no questions for the court, we will hear comments from our advisor.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say good job with the joint city council meeting. You had a lot of discussion, and I think that it was a pretty good conversation. Other than that, I just want to remind everybody that in the upcoming weeks, we'll be having a lot of large bills happening with priorities and criteria, FY25, election code, the election reapportionment, and things like that. So there are going to be quite a few big things coming up soon. So I would say definitely review those and ask questions and talk about it. So,
Are there any questions? Seeing no questions, we will finally move on to comments from the executive branch with President Holliday.
Good evening, everybody. I do have a few kind of bigger announcements to make. I'll try to keep them brief since we've just had a 2-hour meeting. But I wanted to start out with a shout out to ex officio clerk. He did a great job putting together the joint city council meeting. So thank you for doing that. I would say it was a success. So great job with the conversations you all had. Please keep the ideas, the thoughts flowing. We will have our next joint city council meeting. I believe it is the last week of March. So the what day? The 25th of March. So if you have any ideas that come up before then, be sure to send them over to Jeff, as we will make sure that they can get put on the agenda. Or if you just have any ideas in general that you would like to reach out ASAP,
talk to Jeff, and he will be able to help you get in contact with City Council and however else that may need to happen. As everyone else has mentioned before me, TCU was a major success. It was well worth our time to attend. You will all receive a detailed presentation on that next week, so I won't touch too much more on that tonight. But as it has been mentioned a couple of times tonight, the Transportation Advisory Council is in need of some student government representation. Found out about a few positions that we have open from the Chief Newton's advisory board meeting on Monday. So if anyone is interested in that, please shoot me an email or message and let me know, and we will get you signed up. They meet the third Monday of every month from 1:30 to 3 p.m. So if that is something of interest, just let us know. Also, retreat is this weekend. So, if you signed up to go, please make sure you attend. It will be in Ryman Gardens from 10 a.m. to approximately 2:30 to 3 p.m.-ish is when we will get done. We will have a baked potato bar for everybody, so look forward to that. I'll be sending an email out tomorrow at some point to everyone that is attending, just as a reminder and details of where to go once you get in Ryman Gardens. I do want to make an announcement right now. We're asking everyone to bring a notebook and pen when you come, please. We're asking don't use iPads or electronics for this. Please keep it to old-fashioned notebook and pen. And then to wrap up my announcements tonight, Student Government Expo is coming up soon, November 9th. We are behind the scenes doing a lot of work to get that prepared. So please make sure you sign up on the MIS if you have availability that day.
Questions for the executive branch, starting with Senator Janes.
First, I move to add Senator Gopa to the roll.
It's been moved to add Senator Gopa to the roll. Is there any objection to doing so? Seeing none, he shall be sat.
And then I guess my question is there a specific dress code for the retreat?
Nope, no specific dress code. Show up however you would like. Just casual clothes is perfectly fine. We're going to move around a little bit, lots of good presentations, plenty of time for you to go out at some point and take a peek around Ryman Gardens, so whatever you feel most comfortable in.
So you'd recommend to wear like a little bit warmer clothes because we might go outside, or?
Yeah, if you plan to go outside while we are in Ryman Gardens to go tour everything, feel free to wear some warmer clothes.
Got it, thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll start with the business of this evening. And so seeing no special matters, we'll move into external matters, starting with item 2023-2-054SR with Senator Gopa.
So my resolution evaluating Iowa State University pedestrian crosswalks and intersections and enhancing safety signage and measures. Wow, that's a long title. Essentially what this resolution does is we're going to evaluate all the pedestrian crosswalks and intersections on campus and look at problem areas on campus and make a recommendation to ICPD, and ICPD will also make a recommendation with the traffic engineer with FP&M to make changes on campus where there's lots of problem zones. I will take any questions.
Floor is open, starting with Vice Speaker Kamstra.
I'm just kind of confused of how student government is going to be actively involved in evaluating those when I, as a kinesiology major, don't feel comfortable making that decision, if you know what I mean. So I'm just like confused of what do you want student government's role to be like in evaluating those like intersections?
So Chief Newton before this meeting told me that we had 2 incidents last semester and 2 incidents last semester and 4 incidents last semester where people got hit by cars. But a thing that people don't do when they almost get hit by cars is reported to the ICPD. So student government would create this kind of system where we talk to constituents and ask them, hey, where do you think people are getting hit the most? Like, we'd make a data point entry, and collaborating with ICPD would help too. Does that answer your question?
So essentially you would like everybody to reach out to their constituency councils to request any information of, hey, where do you see issues with crosswalks or intersections on campus?
Yep.
Okay, I yield. Motion to add Senator Eisman to the roll.
It's been moved to add Senator Eisman to the roll. Is there any objection to doing so? Seeing no objection, he shall be sat. Senator Wellman.
Okay, so I'm just a little bit confused. I was, so is this resolution like going to ISU PD to like this to recommend that they put some sort of safety sign there.
Yep. Yeah,
And
like
then-
at problem spots.
And then it also like creates a database for people to like do what exactly?
So when they get they nearly get hit by a car. Like some people don't really just when they get hit by cars, they don't tell the police about it. Like I got hit by a car last semester at Seasons Intersection, and I didn't report it to the police because I really didn't know what to do. And that happens with a ton of students every day from the interactions I had on East Campus last semester. Lots of students, when they get nearly hit, they don't care. They're just lucky to be alive. So most people, they don't really react to it and don't tell the police about it, where student government could make a safe environment where they could tell us about it and we could make recommendations to ICPD about it.
So then like who's in control of this database then that will be collecting the information? Student government, ISU PD, I'm kind of confused.
So apparently FP&M has their own system to report near misses, so we would point students towards that. And yeah, I think that's the first way to look at it, and then we can make future motions to change the process.
I yield.
Senator Cecil.
I think there's just a little confusion there with your question. This would not create a database. This is just encouraging us to help people be more like vigilant in saying if those occur. I think. If I'm wrong, Senator Gopa, please correct me.
No, you're right. So there are already implemented databases. We just need to let students know about them and find out problem spots on campus.
Senator Janes.
Got it. So thank you for clarifying about whether or not we're creating a database or pointing them to a new one. But like further down, it talks about working with classes so that they can conduct research on dangerous intersections. So I guess the question there is that just a recommendation we'll submit to professors or to like the civil engineering school, like civil engineering, I don't know what, or is that something that's, like who are we making that recommendation to?
So that's just the recommendation for now. We are gonna reach out to urban planning majors and probably get their input too, because it'd be great for them to get involved as a community and figure out places on campus which are problem spots. So I think involving urban planning majors would be great too, but I think we already have traffic engineers at Iowa State, so we'd be reaching out to them first.
All right, got it. I yield.
Senator Mahoney.
So we had an interesting discussion about the problem intersections that exist across campus in the Chief of Police Advisory Board on Monday. And while, yeah, there are a lot of problematic intersections and there is discussion about like doing more to address a lot of them, I think I don't see how much involvement student government really should/can have in saying these are the problematic intersections, these are the ones we need to work on. I think that's more appropriate left to ISU PD and facilities planning and management to do. So I'm concerned about like saying we're gonna have all this collaboration and we're gonna like the way the resolution's written, as it kind of sounds like we'd be the ones driving that, and I think it's inappropriate for us to be the ones to do so. So as the resolution's written, I don't think it's necessarily appropriate to be adopted because I just don't think we're the experts on this matter. We have subject matter experts at the university level. So a resolution saying, hey, there's problematic intersections, please look at them, is more appropriate than this whole collaborative thing as it stands. And I also think a lot of the conversations have started happening. I know at the meeting on Monday, there goes my phone with an Amber Alert. Chief Newton was more than willing to start talking about some of these things, so I don't necessarily see the point of the resolution as it's written, personally.
Senator Azan.
So I just want to provide a comment to Senator Mahane. So as far as I understand, it's not about like, we are not expert. It's more about raising awareness and like talking to the constituency about this thing and then like getting their feedback and like, it's more about that thing, I feel. if I'm not correct, maybe Senator Goba can correct me, but it's more about like talking to their constituency and like getting their feedback from the students.
Yeah, so what Eddie said was that we're gonna tell them what to do. No, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna make recommendations. And yeah, I think the resolution is right for now, because this essentially just says we're gonna make a recommendation to evaluate spots on campus. And I think, I think we should talk to our constituents and figure out problem spots on campus.
Vice Speaker Kamstra.
First, I have a question for you, Senator Gopa. Who is going to be making those recommendations, like, directly? Is it everybody that's authoring this bill? Like, I have to kind of agree with that, Senator Mahoney here of, I feel like this is a big task that's already underway, and we can't really delineate that to specifically one person unless there's a committee for it. So do you have anybody that you specifically think is going to be making these recommendations? Because they're going to make it on behalf of student government, if you know what I'm getting at here.
I'd say the people on the ISU PD Student Advisory Board, but we'd be just going to the same meeting again and telling Chief Newton about it, so that recommendation would just directly go to him instead of student government sending out something. Yeah, I'm just thinking right now, so.
Not a problem. I was going to let Chief Newton talk if you want to think about it.
Yeah, I yield my time to Chief Newton.
Yeah, that's okay.
I want to clarify a couple points. So in 2022, there were 4 pedestrian accidents on campus. In all of 23 so far, there's been 2. Now, all of them are bad. I mean, don't get me wrong. And we do know the intersections that sometimes are problematic. And I think it's important for us to look at those. And I've committed to that with the Student Advisory Board. And I'm wondering, I mean, I haven't looked at your resolution, so I don't know exactly what it says. I don't think it's a bad thing for us to look at the issue, but would it be more appropriate, right, to bring it into the advisory board and work from that angle? Just, a thought on that. And then on the near miss piece, that would be beneficial information. I do think having a mechanism to get near misses, because we all, right, if you walk around campus enough, you see how many people are almost hit by cars because they're on their phone, wearing headphones, doing those things, or the cars aren't paying attention. Environmental health and safety does have a dashboard and a place where people can report accidental near misses and stuff. We could work with the H&S to potentially, craft that in such a way to collect some of that data and encourage, or we have Iowa State Safe app, and we could look at plugging something into that too. It's really multiple mechanisms that we could all work together. I just want you all to know that I'm open to this, and so I know facilities planning and management is as well, of trying to work together to make our campus pedestrian friendly.
Speaker Hackbarth.
Personally, I don't think that the collaboration aspect of this bill is a bad thing, and I think that collaborating between departments and working with subject matter experts is not a bad move. However, I would like to agree that I think that this is placing a lot of responsibility on student government to push this forward, when I think the correct avenue would be through the ISU Police Chief Advisory Board. So I would like to motion to amend the wording of the bill to read that the Iowa State University student government shall work to raise awareness about the means of recording and reporting near-miss incidents to the ISU Chief Police Advisory Board for them to use to take action.
Been moved and seconded. Can we see those amendments?
Yes, give me just
Yeah, I know.
35 seconds to type it.
Yes, it is debatable. I was just going to give a moment in case any senators wanted to see this visually before voting on it. So.
I'm so sorry, everybody. I was writing this on paper. I did not think to type it.
I think we're almost there.
Not 100% pretty.
All right. So that amendment has been moved and seconded. I'll give you a moment to read it, and then I'll ask for objections.
And this will be replacing the entirety of the resolved clause. So it should just read, the Iowa State University student government shall work to raise awareness for avenues of reporting near miss incidents on campus for the ISU Police Chief Advisory Board to evaluate.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any objections to this amendment? Seeing no objections, the amendment carries. So we're now back on the motion as a whole. And so, Speaker Hackbarth, was that the entirety of your speaking privilege for the bill?
Yes.
We'll then move on to Senator James.
I guess with like this new phrasing, because I would be in support of this because I think it is good to raise awareness. I guess then just as a recommendation to Chief Newton, I would say definitely integrate it into the Iowa State Safe app. I mean, we're definitely going to try to also push that as well to our constituency because knowing Gen Z, we don't like switching apps when we do stuff. So I think keeping it on one app would be a very good thing, especially if they think, oh, if all safety issues go to this, and then all of a sudden they have to go to a different website. You know, when you're in this time of panic, you don't always remember multiple routes. So I think that would be a good thing. I yield.
Senator Everhart.
I guess just building off of that, this would also be directed towards you, Chief Newton. Having some type of data collection mechanism, whether that's like a Google form or a Microsoft form to send out to our constituencies. So that way that like they have some way to report, you know, those critical points that, you know, maybe are more inclined to be hit by a car. But yeah, if you had like some type of data collection mechanism that we could send out to our constituencies, and I know we had a program about reaching out to them, I would love to have that included in an email to our exec board.
It's been moved and seconded to end debate. Is there any objection to doing so? Seeing no objection, closing comments, Senator Gopa. Seeing no closing comments, UC has been called for. Is there any objection to passing this motion by way of unanimous consent? Seeing no objection, the motion carries. And so with that, seeing no internal matters, we'll move on to our new business items, specifically item 2023-2-009F with Senator Wellman.
I yield to Director Hirsch.
Yeah, guys, super straightforward bill. It's a debt contract for women's ultimate Frisbee team. They had a misallocation last semester. Obviously, this bill is just on first read. I've talked to their treasurer and president quite a bit. COA also has. They've already begun the process of fundraising. They've raised $2,000, so it's $2,000. It would have been $2,000 more. Originally, they're on top of it. They're being super proactive, and I feel very confidently that they'll be able to pay it back, the debt contract.
And so with that, the floor is open for any questions of intent on this first read. Without objection, we'll move on from this item. Seeing no objection, we've completed the business for this evening, and so we're now open for any closing announcements. Starting with Senator Everhart.
Yeah, so after the Jack Trice commemoration ceremonies that we had in the past weeks, we had a past president reach out about continuing that commemoration celebration. And if you're interested in like the foreseeable future, planning events for a week-long celebration, you can reach out to myself or Vice President Margaret just to kind of get more information about what we're thinking of doing, but also if you have ideas for events that we can host on campus to commemorate Jack Trice and have something for the students to participate in.
And so if you want a closing comment in the back rows, you're probably going to have to flag me down. But Senator Wellman.
Yeah, so this really is not an event that I'm going to talk about, but real quick, this needs to be said because over the past couple of weeks, and granted I wasn't here last week, but I've heard some questions asked to our nominees, like at-larges, directors, senators, that aren't really appropriate. And I think it just needs to be said that, like, this is just student government, guys. We're not the end-all be-all. We're not, like, this isn't going on our obituary. Like, it's okay that we make mistakes and we have those times, but, like, this isn't, it should definitely be taken seriously because we do have a $2.5 million budget. But at the end of the day, this isn't everything. So we just need to remind that, especially when we have retention rates that are kind of low. Like, if we're being rude to these nominees, to these at-larges, why would they want to come back and be a senator? Why would they want to come back and be a director? So we need to be thinking about the questions, how they perceive it when we ask these questions. So just that way you guys are all aware, we just kind of need to be kinder to some of these people that we're seeing and that we're approving. So with that, I yield.
Are there any further closing announcements? Seeing none, I'll share my brief closing announcements. It's already been discussed, but next week we're excited to talk to you about what we learned at TCU. Again, I'm not going to elaborate, but that'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to remind you again that the retreat is this Saturday at 10 p.m. Please bring a notebook. We want you to be able. What did I say? 10 p.m. Did I say 10 p.m.? Yes. 10 a.m. Please do not show up at 10 p.m. Show up at 10 in the morning, please, and show up with a notebook and a pencil or a pen, something physically on paper. Please show up at 10 a.m. And so people have asked, but yes, that is inside. Do not worry. I believe it was last week that Speaker Hackbarth talked about the constituency directory. And so please, tonight, if you haven't already, look over the directory for your constituency, just so we know we have the right names and the right information. So when we reach out to them, we're connecting with the right people. And so, again, I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to badger you all over the next week or so. Sign up for the expo if you haven't already. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be free food. We really want this to be a success as a proof of concept, so maybe we could do it again. We're trying to make sure that there's somebody from every committee, every group in student government there, at least one person for the duration of the time. And so especially I think right now there are some gaps when it comes to SI, PR, legislative ambassadors, local affairs, and sustainability. And there's one spot left for the court. So if you're on any of those groups, I really encourage you, look at the MIS, find out when you can attend. And if you absolutely can't attend because you have a class where they take attendance or you have an exam or something like that, there is a I can't attend box. So that means I stop bothering you. So please, whether you can attend or not, please put your name on that. And I think that's all that I have. And so I'll yield to Vice Speaker Kamstra.
So I have three brief ones. The first one is, can you hear me? Okay, there we go. Cool, thank you. The first one is about a project that I started today. Met with the president of Exercises Medicine Club and going to work on collaborating with student government to do a health promotional activity in the month of February. So we're very early, but hopefully in the early planning stages we can make this a very large event that's very successful in a time where seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, is a very common thing for us Iowans. So if you would like to learn more about that project or potentially join the team on that, please reach out to me. Next, I'll just say, there's StugOv retreat this Saturday if you didn't hear about it. And afterwards, we'd like to do a little informal watch party of the football game since we are going to end right at 2:30. So if anybody's interested in coming to that, let me know. And then if you want to join an external committee like Chiefs Advisory Board or any of the ones involving the city and want to learn more about it, come talk to any of the chief officers and we can let you know more about it and potentially send your name in. So, yeah.
And I'm sorry, Speaker.
Spoons. Spoons is starting today. So if you would like or filled out the form, I will have your spoon in the StugOv office tomorrow in an envelope with your name because I didn't make them today because I was busy prepping for the meeting. So I will have them in in the StugOv office tomorrow morning. I will send you a text with who you are assigned to. Please go get your spoon. And I will go over the rules after the meeting. So if you're participating, please stick around and I will do like it's literally like 2 points. So just a brief little meeting over the rules. So thanks, that's all I got.
I'm sorry, Speaker Heckbarth, I accidentally skipped over Senator Cecil.
Just to disagree with Quinn, not for valid reasons. If your class doesn't take attendance, please still go to class. We're here for class.
Excuse me.
someone can cover the StuGov Expo, so just please go to class. That's the point you came here. So that's all.
Fair point. Speaker Hackbarth.
Okay. So I'm going to touch very briefly on the attendance policy. We are in exam season, or at least exam season number 2. For a lot of you, if you have study sessions or if you have any real academic thing coming up, or even just a family emergency, anything along those lines, make sure you review our attendance policy. Make sure that the reasoning that you're asking to be excused is in line with that attendance policy. You can find it in the Teams. Go to General, Files. It's like Senate 2324. Our attendance policy is tucked away in there. And just review that. We do have people who will email us, and we don't really get a reason. We need a reason. You can't just say, I won't be there. Please provide us with a reason. It really makes it a whole lot nicer for us. Secondly, if you are not on a committee, aka if in the MIS you are not listed under a committee on the committee's availability tab, you will be receiving an email from either Vice Speaker Kamstra or myself, because all of our senators need to sit on at least one committee, and those will be going out at the end of the week. So if you have 37 seconds after the meeting, just check, super quick. And lastly, but certainly not least, I know I'm an insect nut, and I know I love bugs, but if you see a dead cockroach in the office, maybe throw it away, because it's not, listen, it's a great gift for me. I love the fact that somebody saw that dead cockroach and was like, our speaker's gonna love that. I appreciate it. Please throw it away. And in fact, let's just avoid getting cockroaches altogether. Make sure you're cleaning out the refrigerator if you leave food in there. Make sure that you're cleaning up the tables if you spill stuff on there. Let's just keep that shared space nice and orderly. And with that, motion to adjourn. Go Cyclones.
We are adjourned.
If you want to join Spoons, stick around and I can add your name to the list. Thank you, Chief Newton.